I didn't hear that last sentence. It is chaos in Miami with 7 shootings in 6 days. A couple of people shot a few blocks from here in front of Prime 112. Last time the danger or the threat got that close to the money, 8 p.m. curfew, helicopters, state of emergency is what happened. Miami feels like the 1980s right now. We're in the middle of it on South Beach. We've got all of Meadowlark Media coming down here this week to be a part of what we're planning for Friday, 24 straight hours of streaming. Greg Cody is here, hitting the asthma inhaler already after climbing the steps, coughing vigorously, saying this is a tough morning for him.
He was trying to keep that a secret. I mean,
was he? It's out here, and we're on Twitch, and people can. In game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Heat lead the best-of-7 series 1-0. That was a few months ago. Everyone is back to firing Riley, and you look, and it gets scary, Stugotz, when you see that Jimmy Butler is up for an off-season contract, 4 years, $181 million, which gets him $40 million at the age of 33, $43 million a season at the age of 34, $47 million at the age of 35, and $50.3 million at the age of 36. And he was outscored against the Bucks by Bryn Forbes. And the Bucks are taking a victory lap. Their social media account was funny. Mo Harkless is LOLing you on Twitter. He had 1 point a game as a member of the Miami Heat.
Mo Harkless is a member of the Heat?
He was, and he's now LOLing. He would not be LOLing if he were still a member of the Heat, Stugotz. He was a member of the Heat. Udonis threw a chair. It didn't help. The assistant coaches clapped a great deal. We are going to do the Heat autopsy because they have won as many playoff games this year as the Orlando Magic.
So what do you do with that if you're the Heat with Jimmy Butler? He got you to an NBA final, didn't win it. This year was a disappointment, but he's a guy that couldn't track Kawhi Leonard, right?
Before you go down this path, before we go immediately from the autopsy to Stugotz bringing the next transaction down here, I simply want to marvel at how quickly things change. Jason Tatum called Tyler Hero a bubble fraud in a reality series that they're doing, and Tyler Hero did nothing in the way of improving this season. I am legitimately confused by what it is that just happened, because while the Heat did not improve and the Bucks did, it does not explain the difference between last year and this year in terms of disparity. The Heat rolled through the playoffs last year. They beat the Bucks easily. They beat everyone easily. And so you go from that to not winning a playoff game, looking fundamentally broken. And so it makes me search for explanations, because it's too much to guys. However much the Bucks improved.
Right.
And however much the Heat stayed the same, it doesn't explain the disparity in these games where the Heat in games 2, 3, and 4 didn't have a chance.
No.
There was no chance. Jimmy Butler was a shell of himself. And I wonder this, right, as people criticize everybody, because I understand how it is that happens. I do wonder, as Anthony Davis, Stugotz, plays through injury, as Chris Paul plays through injury, when is it fair? I do not want to make excuses for Jimmy Butler. So let me preface this on the front end by, this is not homerism. It's just wondering, in a culture of sports where they hide the injuries and there are no excuses and everybody gets shot up, when is it fair to ask the question, given that he missed games at the, like, seeding games that mattered, right? Maybe this conversation about the Heat is different if they're playing the Knicks.
Yep.
And then they get the Sixers in the second round, and now Joel Embiid is hurt. Maybe we're having a totally different conversation, but we're not. Now we're talking about slaughtering embarrassment that people enjoyed. We're talking about the internet laughing at the Miami Heat. Mike Ryan was mad at Bam and torched the blueprint last week. Greg Cody has an opinion on the Miami Heat that is different from the one that he had in September 1st, that when Sports Illustrated was writing this article.
Don't sound so surprised that he has an opinion.
But it's a different opinion than the one he would have had a few months ago. I mean, Jimmy Butler didn't get that old in 6 months, 7 months.
Well, his game seemed to. I mean, 6 months ago, he's 40 points on demand, seemingly, on the biggest stage, and he's better than we've ever seen him. And just now, in this 4-game sweep, he was awful. He was shooting 30%. Tyler Hero was awful. Bam Adebayo was awful. Other than the last game, he was okay. But their top 3 scorers disappeared on that stage. And I don't know whether you can explain something like that. Spoelstra, who's a great coach, had no answers. He had nowhere to go because his big stars had disappeared.
Greg Cody's opinion is that the Heat will not win unless Jimmy and Bam are the second and third best players on the team. And again, that's a different opinion than a few months ago when you saw, Stugotz, that Heat fans were making the argument, if Dragic had been healthy,
right,
maybe they win the championship, because they felt after Jimmy Butler's game 5, I just can't believe how quickly things change, is what I'm stunned by. And I'm asking you, when is it fair to ask when a guy looks that much different than he did a few months ago? Hey, is he physically right in a no excuses sport where he sat out games at the end in a bad matchup for him? It's a bad matchup for him. Giannis is bigger, stronger, faster, younger, longer. It's a bad combination of things for him.
He was all those things last year as well, but Jimmy Butler, to Greg's point, seemed like he gave you a 40-point triple-double on just about every, any night. I would say that Jimmy's played a lot of basketball over the last 18 months. I don't know if that factors into him being tired or not. He certainly wasn't the same Jimmy Butler. I don't know if COVID factors into the entirety of the team and how they were affected by that. I mean, there's a lot. And then, Dan, I can explain, I feel like, Tyler Hero and Bam, because you did have Butler and Bam 1-2 that got you to the NBA Finals, but you also had Tyler Hero, and he was a great 3, and he's not as good. Bam hasn't been as good. Butler hasn't been as good. Those young guys, though, are playing in really their first playoff. Like road games in the playoffs are different than playing in a bubble. It was a
Mike
different
Ryan
experience.
just waved his hand in front of his face like he smelled something bad. It's something that Bradley Beal did to Ben Simmons when he shot a 3 earlier in that series. Put it on the poll, please, Chris Cody at Batard Show. Did that security guard in the Wizards-Sixers game have perfect tackling form on that streaker?
I really hope you don't fall into this aggregation trap of discounting the bubble. I understand it's different to not have fans in there. It's different quantifiably with shooters. Jay Crowder's fallen back to earth this postseason.
Did you see that Jay Crowder? I think I saw on Twitter somebody saying that Jay Crowder before the last game was shooting 5% from 3.
Yeah, but he can. He's a bad man.
5% from 3 is really horrific.
No one really likes to talk about it, but Anthony Davis was shooting lights out within the bubble. So there are certain things, but you can't tell me those games weren't pressure filled. We all felt it. Game 5 of the NBA Finals when Jimmy Butler had to muster up one of the all-time efforts just to save face and extend that series to 6 games. He's played a lot of basketball in his career. He's played a lot of basketball for Tom Thibodeau. He lost 12 pounds this season because of a bout with COVID. I mean, they were playing NBA Finals intensity, intense games back in October. Okay, this wasn't a long time ago. It's no surprise that his legs weren't fully underneath him this season and the shot fell off a little bit. I actually have more faith in Jimmy Butler in terms of aging just because what he showed in the postseason last year. I have faith in his game. I have faith in his facilitating. Where I was really disappointed, I didn't necessarily blow up the blueprint, but I have a hell of a lot more questions about Bam Adebayo now than I did in October. The fact that Coach Budenholzer, who the book out on him was that he wasn't this tactical mastermind. The fact that he realized, look, they've been saying for 3 years, Bam's got to be more aggressive, and he still hasn't done it himself. So we're going to play with his mind. We're going to slack off entirely and make Bam Adebayo beat us. And it didn't happen with him. Tyler Hero, we've done a million shows on how disappointing that kid was this season.
Right. Yeah, he regressed, Tyler Hero did. The thing about Bam is Giannis and Brook Lopez made Bam Adebayo look small. They made his game look small. Just physically, they overpowered him.
Can it just be that he is the defensive genius and offensively he kind of just is what he was this season? Like maybe he's not going to be a guy that's going to score 20 points a game. He's just going to be elite defensively.
To Greg Cody's point, though, last year, the kryptonite for Giannis Antetokounmpo, an MVP type of player in a season that was historically great, the kryptonite was Bam Adebayo. It's why people predicted that the Miami Heat would win that series, and it wasn't a huge surprise because of all the things that he can do defensively. But when Greg talks about Giannis and Brook Lopez, the Heat shot 32% against Brook Lopez when he was hovering around the rim. And Greg Cody just got done saying Bam Adebayo played well in Game 4. When Brook Lopez is better than you,
Yep.
you're going to lose every game. Brook Lopez, every game that Brook Lopez is better than Bam Adebayo, you're simply going to lose. And Brook Lopez was not only changing things on the defensive side, he outplayed Bam offensively on the offensive side.
Brook Lopez is the Bucks' 4th or 5th best player. So he's outplaying your second best player. Yeah, there's a major problem.
But Brook Lopez didn't get better. The pieces around Brook Lopez got better, and the positioning of Brook Lopez in this series changed a little bit, but that wasn't. And it's from long range, he's improved. He's an ultimate professional. Credit to him. That's a very good team. But this wasn't about Brook Lopez. This was about Bam Adebayo.
Well, it's also about the Bucks, though. The Bucks are just better, Mike. We talked about
1,000%.
Drew Holiday has made them a better
1,000%. And I didn't mean to take credit away from the Bucks. The Bucks, I think, are going to be the Eastern Conference champions. The Miami Heat had a very
series played out.
I'm likely to believe that it might actually be, because their second best player was Chris Middleton, and now their third best player is Chris Middleton, who in the playoffs has a skill set that we saw in game one. He's an absolute game winner. I feared Drew Holiday way more than I feared Eric Bledsoe. There are flaws in Eric Bledsoe's game. And when Drew Holiday gets hot on both sides of the court, it is a very good second player. The Milwaukee Bucks, because of where they are in Milwaukee, they had to make that aggressive move for Drew Holiday and give him the big contract. The Miami Heat saw guys like PJ Tucker. They had shots at guys like PJ and shots at guys like Drew Holiday, and they held on to their cards. They, much like we talk about the James Harden thing, and I'm not exactly sure how 100% true that is. The Miami Heat lost to guys that they could have had, that they didn't want to give up the pieces for because they felt like they had the better hand because they just made it to an NBA Finals. Turns out, wrong move. Milwaukee gets better.
Dan, Holiday averaged 15 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds in that series. They didn't have that last year. The Bucks did not have that last year. They have it now.
Stugotz, I am not meaning to disparage Drew Holiday. I'm really not. I'm saying that you have gone from, again, in a few months, Pat Riley's a genius. Look at culture, and now you're telling me, man, Drew Holiday is the difference between them knocking out a historically great regular season team easily, and them getting swept more easily because Bryn Forbes and Drew Holiday. Like, come on, Stugotz. If I tell you any other team in the league has added Drew Holiday, that's not the disparity you're making. It can be all of those things, right? It can be everything that we're talking about. Every last thing. COVID and Jimmy Butler not physically right and long season last year and bubble frauds, because I do think, Stugotz, one of the things that you concern yourself with when Jay Crowder goes from, do you remember last year we were talking and I'm saying, I don't remember Jay Crowder shooting like this ever. I've always thought of him as an erratic shooter. And then you go to now and he's 5% from three the first 3 games. I'm legitimately confused by what I just saw. And I wonder, and I ask the audience and you guys this question, because I do wonder about this, having seen it happen so fast, squeezed and fast forwarded from Riley's a genius to Riley's an idiot, 7 months. And I want to ask you this, because is it fair to wonder if when they signed Dion Waiters and Hassan Whiteside, because they got a 31-11 fluke and a second half in a season and said, let's try again, if they got another bubble fluke that would understandably explain why it is that Pat Riley suddenly became an idiot while the Bucks looked like they did exactly what they needed to do to keep Giannis, which is go and mortgage yourself for a second best player like Drew Holiday, even though it's too expensive, in the effort to win this year because you think you can beat the Nets.
Well, I think if the Miami Heat from the bubble played the Miami Heat of this year, the Miami Heat of this year would get their ass dragged. Why is that? Well, last year's team actually had better players too. Remember, Pat Riley did try to improve this team with Victor Oladipo. Everybody was singing their praises. The Miami Heat were playing good basketball. It didn't work out. Oladipo got hurt. That kind of shoots your plans because now you don't have Kelly Olynyk or Jay Crowder headed into this postseason. We're all struggling, and it's unfortunate. Not that an Eastern Conference champion has much of a legacy, but a lot of it is tarnished because this bubble thing only gets amplified because the Miami Heat dropped completely off this season. It's not just that the Milwaukee Bucks are better. The Miami Heat are a lot worse than they were last year, and we're all struggling to find out exactly why.
I think the autopsy of the Heat failure in being swept has to start with their big 3 in scoring. Butler, Adebayo, and Hero during the regular season combined for a 56-point average per game. They were a sad fraction of that in these 4 games. And I think that's where it has to start. Your big 3 scorers didn't show.
Pat Riley decided after a 30-11 second half or whatever it was, I'm going to do the absurd thing of giving money to Dion Waiters. I'm going to give money to Hassan Whiteside.
Felt right at the time.
I understand. And this is what I want to talk about, though. So it's a 40-game sample, and we all celebrated when they won like that and talked about culture. When they signed those guys, then we celebrated again when they traded those guys. Riley's a genius. He's special.
It's quite the roller coaster.
Then we go to Eastern Conference Finals. And the question I'm asking you guys is, is it a mistake that everyone makes? Not the first one, but the second one, to think that your bubble team is real, to think that your mid-seeded bubble team who went through the playoffs last year as a 5 seed, correct? They swept the Pacers. The Pacers were the 4 seed. They made it look easy. 4, 5, 6. They knock off Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Not this version of the Celtics, also in disrepair. Also some of the things that can be explained about the Heat. What happened to Boston this year? Played deep into the season, and the teams that played deep into last season, just their bodies aren't right. All of them. Anthony Davis just fell apart again. Like, none of these. One of the things that's been fascinating about the sports greed of the pandemic is to see the bodies physically falling apart.
But Anthony Davis has been falling apart for a decade. Bubble or no bubble.
Well, he wasn't
Yes.
last year. Last year he was fine. Last year, bubble or no bubble, he won the championship.
He did.
Bubble or no bubble, he beat the Heat. He was the difference in winning the championship and not winning the championship last year. And so you could say he's always injured, but now he's injured again. And I just simply wonder, is it an understandable mistake? Would you have stood pat? Because I remember the arguments around here. James Harden was not somebody that everyone around here wanted a few months ago.
It would have been very difficult on the heels of that run for me if I'm running the organization, but I'm not Pat Riley. Like Pat Riley, this is what he's supposed to do. This is what he's supposed to be great at. This is why he's beloved down here in South Florida. I'm not certain I could have traded Tyler Hero or Bam, but when you consider what you could have gotten back, which was James Harden, it seems pretty ridiculous now.
How dare you, Dan Lebatard? I want James Harden now. Yeah, we should have done
Oh,
that.
you shut up.
Wow. I mean, what are you doing, Pat Riley? He did try to help the team, though. He did try to improve when he realized, okay, we maybe missed the bus in not being super aggressive for James Harden, even though I don't think you top the Nets offer for James Harden. And that's also hanging over this, too. He did try to help the team. He went for it. And Oladipo fit really well. And Oladipo, the Miami Heat, framed his decision as Victor Oladipo decides to have surgery after we played this vague game of is he available or is he not for damn near 2 months, ends up not being available. And right there, your championship hopes are dashed. Now, that doesn't mean you can't still be competitive. They got swept out and embarrassed.
They kicked the tires on Harden. I mean, it's not as if they didn't go after him. It's not as if they weren't interested. And correct me if I'm wrong, they would have included Tyler Hero in a heartbeat. They couldn't compete with Brooklyn because they don't have first round picks to give.
I'm not even talking about whether they could have. I'm talking about the general atmosphere here and in Miami when this was being talked about, and people did not want him. Did not want him around strip clubs, did not want his potbelly self wandering around. Like, that was a thing. Well,
they fell in love with Tyler Hero and Bam too. I mean, it's a combination.
Understood, but I am floored again. I will say again, I'm floored by how much things can change in a quick period of time, because again, not to disparage Drew Holiday, but I believe everyone is forgetting how good that Bucks team was last year. The Bucks team that headed into the playoffs and got dismantled by the Miami Heat had a historic regular season. They were like as good for much of the season as Golden State was the year that they went 72-10. So the part that I'm confused by is the Heat dismantled that team. So I'm wondering, and I know playoffs are about matchups, and so the matchups changed because Drew Holiday was out there. But it doesn't explain. Drew Holiday is not the reason that Bryn Forbes outscored Jimmy Butler. Drew Holiday is not the reason Brook Lopez was better than Bam Adebayo.
We didn't want to give up Tyler Hero for the likes of Drew Holiday, let alone James Harden. Now you see that, man, we should have traded Hero for Drew Holiday because we would have been so much better. And he wouldn't have been with the Bucks. He would have been with us. Sometimes when you hold your cards and you play certain ones, it just doesn't work out. And it didn't work out for this year's Miami Heat. The Oladipo thing, I think, was pretty big, ultimately.
I think you're kind of underestimating the impact of Drew Holiday, though, in terms of, so the biggest difference between last year and this year was an 18-point drop-off in the Heat's offensive rating. Drew Holiday is one of the best defenders in the NBA, period. But the other thing that it does, too, is it kind of takes Giannis off the ball. One of the things that we've seen with Giannis is that he does have a little bit of a limited offensive game in bigger moments, and Giannis was actually allowed to be a screener in this series. And Drew Holiday kind of opened up the entire floor. So in a weird way, like, he is kind of a massive part of the impact. Like, I think you're kind of underselling what he kind of changes in that Milwaukee team.
It's a great point where Giannis doesn't have to be relied on to do every single little thing. He had a game where he had 17 points. They won that game easily. He averaged 23.5 points per game. We all know he can average 35 if he wanted to. Doesn't have to anymore. I mean, it seems like you don't like Drew Holiday. I mean,
those are all good points on Drew Holiday. I'm still saying to you, as I see the Bucks be a lot different as a team, I feel like everyone's forgetting how good that team was in the regular season last year. Their point differential, I think there's been only one other team that had that point differential during a regular season because of how they crushed everybody. And they are a different team. And they made all of those moves. They spent a lot of money on Drew Holiday for that reason. The Heat made them do that. The Heat in every way made them do that because of the fear that Giannis was going to end up here.
They were 56-17. They were +10. The eventual champion Lakers were +5. So they were a really good team. You're right. They were a good team. They're better this year.
Better for the specific reasons you're talking about for playoff basketball.
Yes.
Better for playoff basketball. And they know it because Giannis, after I had not heard this quote. Had you guys heard this quote? Because this kind of stuff can become a cliche, but this is not a quote that I had heard. I remember the first time that I ever heard that, I think it was Kobe Bryant was playing with Andrew Bynum, and Kobe Bryant says, "Everyone knows I eat first," in terms of dog analogies. I had never heard anyone in sports say what Giannis did, which is, "Don't play with your food. We didn't want to play with our food." That the Miami Heat were their food, that they didn't want to go up 3-0 and play with their food. Have you guys heard someone say that way about sports? Because I imagine it can and will become a cliche, but it's the first time I heard it.
When the food is on the plate, Dan, you eat it. You don't play around with it. You don't move it around. You don't change side. You eat the food that's on the plate. Otherwise, the food might get, food might eat you. You never know.
I understand the quote, Stugotz. You explained it and elaborated it in a way that you made it worse. No, right. I'm not. I seem confused.
The food could get cold. I mean, you never know.
I know what it means to not play with your food, Stugotz. I don't know why you felt like you very cockily got in there, waving your sausage fingers around, very confidently explaining to me what Giannis meant, as if I didn't understand it.
He seemed confused, Greg. Did he not? I mean,
to Giannis's point, in Game 4, it looked like they were teasing and toying with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
The Heat had a 6-point halftime lead, and the Bucks laughed at it and dominated in the second half.
I feel like you lost the plot a little bit because then you combine like traditional plated food with Animal Kingdom, because I don't think my chicken cordon bleu is going to eat me.
You're right. You read that correctly. You did. Yeah.
I feel like you tried to explain and elaborate my point, and you muddled it and made it appreciably worse by, instead of making it about hunting, making it about a chicken parm attacking you.
You're welcome. I mean, I do what I can around here.
Thank you, Stugotz. How'd you feel about the Bucks?
Stu Holiday.
How did you feel about the Bucks? As when I get too ball dominant, I do need a Stu Holiday. Unfortunately, my stew is always on holiday.
Hey-o.
I mean, you just didn't understand the analogy at all. Like
I got caught up in the middle of it, Dan.
But you did it with your fingers, and you were like,
I felt good.
You were so. Sometimes your food you don't want it to get cold.
Yeah,
because nobody.
Then I realized food can't eat you. Yes.
So you didn't even. You say I was confused. You project that on me. You didn't understand the quote.
Freedom Week, Dano.
Friday, 24 hours of streaming nonstop. We're practicing for it today with no interruptions and no breaks. You could catch it on Twitch at the moment, although we're trying to do that quietly.
Actually, all the emails said Twitch because I guess Twitch has become like a verb, but we're actually on the YouTube page right now. So
what? We have a YouTube
So
page?
if you're watching right now, this is where you watch us for 24 hours. Noon Friday, June 4th to noon Saturday, June 5th.
Look at wow, man. How about that?
Wow.
So it is a lot this week. A lot of people. An engineer walked in there to tell you that they were just calling YouTube Twitch. Are these the people ensuring that we are going to be up on Friday? They're calling YouTube Twitch because they don't know the difference.
You know, a wise man once said, life's like a lazy river, Dan. Just allow it to take you where it takes you.
Don't fight it, Dano.
Right.
Dan, you're a YouTuber now, just like Jake Paul and Logan Paul.
Like the combined weight of them.
Jake Paul and Logan Paul. Now they're both winning right now. Jake Paul is the one who's oh my God, he's fighting Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, that's a handpicked opponent right there.
I mean, all he's done is he's lost. Woodley's lost. Like all he does is get beat up the last 5 times. But these MMA guys are just going for the payday, for the easy payday where they get paid better than they do, when they have to do the thing that they used to be good at.
And Jake Paul is learning from Floyd Mayweather, who handpicked Logan Paul, the worst of the 2 Paul boxers. They're picking good opponents to keep this money train going. And shout out to them, I guess. Well, no, I rescind my shout out. No, thank you.
Wait, so we don't think Woodley will destroy Jake Paul? Like we're thinking this is another.
No, I think this is another Ben Askren.
Wow.
I really do.
He's a washed
But Woodley's more of a striker,
shot.
though.
Woodley's shot, man. And Jake Paul's not a bad boxer for someone that was a celebrity and took up boxing.
But Askren was a wrestler. Woodley's at least a striker, but he might just be done.
I mean, Woodley's going to, he's certainly not going to enter that fight with a beer belly the way that Ben Askren did. So the optics of it is going to look more impressive for Jake Paul, but it's another dub for Jake Paul.
But they have squeezed the last remnants out of Woodley's career, the last 5 or 6 fights where they're just throwing him out there and people are like, oh, that used to be Tyron Woodley.
Oh, yeah, it's sad. It's sad. They announced his fight, and I'm worried about Woodley, which is not great considering the heights of his career and the fact that he's facing a YouTuber.
I'm worried that our people in charge, there are a lot of people around here in charge of our engineering, don't know the difference between YouTube and Twitch, just like Stugotz doesn't know the difference between being hunted and eating Oreos.
You're welcome.
Lazy River, Dan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you guys not worried about
A little bit.
Friday?
Yeah.
Am I worried about
31 minutes? I mean,
am I worried about Friday? I mean, 24 hours of not being able to say, hey, let's not say that. Maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe we shouldn't follow this path without it getting clunky. Yeah, I'm worried about it. I'm worried a lot of it.
I enjoyed how the Bucks on social media played with their food. I enjoyed how they made fun of Heat Twitter, Good Night Heat Twitter with a video, and they threw out there a number of different things like this ain't the bubble. I thought I am always rooting. I imagine Heat fans didn't like that very much. And I'm a Miami guy, but I enjoy social media. I enjoy professional teams behaving less professionally.
How about you win your first round against an inferior team and move on and shut up? You haven't won a title yet. You haven't made it to the NBA Finals. The Heat did last year. They did it by beating you. Do me a favor. Just shut up until you get there and win it.
Coming from the guy whose streets were flooded by the Knicks winning Game 1.
I mean, I felt like I won a championship that day.
Just shut up and act like
Larry
you won
O'Brien.
something. As you want to go ahead and argue again that Julius Randle is a superstar? You want to make all those arguments again?
Regular season, he was great. I mean,
just like the Bucks were.
This postseason, it is not dampered what has been a great year for the Knicks, because anything that happened here in the postseason was gravy.
What is dampered? What is dampering?
Making worse, I guess.
I think it's dampen.
Dampen,
you did a Chris Cody combine a couple words.
23 and a half hours to go.
We should bring in Jessica because the Knicks are like one of the 3 teams that she supports in the NBA, but they may legitimately raise a banner for just made the Garden feel alive that one time.
Yeah.
Stugotz, I'm leaving for the airport in a few hours, and I'm bringing you this game-waved Knicks towel from MSG Game 2
Yes.
here. Has your name on it, some dog hair on it. I'll lint roll it for you, but I'm on the way to Miami for you tonight.
All right.
We hear. I saw Stephen A. Smith was on television in front of a lot of Knicks fans and at the Hawks Arena shouting "We hear," and they get beat very quickly, and again flooding the streets when they tied the series against the Bucks 1-1.
Someone still has a game left to play. It might just be one, but we have a game left to play.
Congratulations. An entire season of gassing up R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle has turned out the way that we all kind of thought it would be, with Stephen A. screaming on First Take, "They only go left!"
I just find, am I allowed to find funny, Stugotz, the idea that you rant and rave about others shutting up when We Here is on towels and Stephen A. Smith is shouting We Here, and they Here as a 4 seed losing 3-1 to the Hawks, and
Trae Young is good, man.
It's the first promotional idea that's ever just a declarative sentence. Let's just put it on a towel. A declarative, hey, we're here. Like, how about that? We haven't been in a while. We here.
It's a reason to celebrate.
Yeah, and I can't tell if it's just leaning into the New York vernacular by saying we here, or if James Dolan was just trying to save money.
it is not an echoing chant of confidence.
It really isn't.
To say it's like, it's also, they could have said we've arrived, which would also be accurate, but it's just sort of like you've just gotten to departures is all you're saying. Like you're really,
Yeah, but when you never get to departures and you finally get there, isn't that worthy of a celebration?
It's not we flying. It's really we at the gate. It's like we're right here at the port. Like we're not. Our luggage hasn't even been checked yet.
We're at E6.
It's honestly how you walk into a house where people aren't expecting you, where you swing open a door. We here, like, so they don't shoot you in the face.
How can you get hyped over that? It's not like Back in Black or anything like that. It's just a text message when you arrive to a Getty a little early. What's
Hey,
next?
here.
What's the next promotional plan? WYA.
It is a very tepid entry into the playoffs, but very New York in shouting it and thinking that it's smugly smart. We here, we have arrived. We are knocking on the door. Like, what is the most tepid way that you could say that?
I don't know, but whatever you guys need to do to make yourselves feel better about your team, go ahead. Even if it's at the expense of my New York.
It helps. It certainly does help.
I know it
I'm
does.
pacifying myself with your tears.
It is funny. It reminds me what just happened with Heat and Knicks this year, of all of those years we spent yelling about Jets and Dolphins while the Patriots were winning the division, while the Patriots had Tom Brady. It felt like that. For why couldn't it have been Heat Knicks in the playoffs? Do you realize how differently we'd be talking about all these things? It'd be 2-2. Julius Randle wouldn't look like a total bum. Pat Riley wouldn't look like a total bum. We'd all be sitting here yelling about how the other is more mediocre. It would have been so much more fun than what they've given us, which is, hey, the top half of the East is better than our teams, and our team is led by a guy who's going to be paid $50 million at the age of 36, who was just outscored by Bryn Forbes.
But if he gets us Kawhi,
That's it. That's it. Right?
Miami Beach.
But New York is going to get Kawhi after this playoff run. After being here, the Mecca is going to get Kawhi. Isn't that how we do this?
Yeah, but Kawhi wants to play with Jimmy, doesn't he?
Now, though, he wanted to.
Who knows what the hell Kawhi wants?
knows anything.
Get out of here.
I don't know. I just heard someone say it.
Nobody knows what the hell Kawhi wants.
Except that he wanted 40-point Jimmy a lot more than he wanted last week's Jimmy.
Maybe he wants Bryn Forbes now. Maybe he's going to go join the Bucks.
I'd meet Bryn Forbes at an airport right now if he wanted to come to Miami. I'd just hold up a limo sign saying, "We here."
This is where we've arrived with playoff basketball. And how do you feel about Heat culture when Udonis Haslem is 41 years old and throwing a chair? The only ones clapping are the assistant coaches as all the players roll their eyes, and then the Bucks go on a 10-3 run immediately afterward. I want to know how that's absorbed by all of the people who enjoyed Udonis Haslem being paid for 3 minutes of basketball for 3 years when he got in Dwight Howard's face.
I grew up in South Florida. I love the Miami Heat, and yet I still find this uproariously funny. Because immediately the regional sports network Twitter account puts up a video of Udonis Haslem is getting the Heat ready for action. And then I saw that video. All right, so surely the Heat made a comeback. And then they lost by double digits. Like, well, this culture thing doesn't always work, does it?
The throwing of a chair, the angry throwing of a chair is why he's on the roster and has been for 3 years.
It would have been very fitting of the way that series went if he had gotten a technical foul for throwing a chair onto the court. Because metal chairs can scratch hardwood.
A good point. Yeah.
You're just saying.
Yeah. T.
I'm glad you said
Technical.
it. Yeah.
The UD.
Yeah.
This is Greg Cody's Curb Your Enthusiasm moment. He respects wood. Greg
Damn
Cody
right.
respects the
I
hardwood.
do. It's shiny. It's beautiful.
You're right.
4 a.m.
yes.
Saturday morning, you will get the
Oh,
stylings
wow.
of one Greg Cody left to his own devices. You will get some of that.
I wanted that time slot. I mean, that's what I was hoping for was the
Sure.
4 to 5 a.m.
Prime.
I joined Greg on his podcast this week, the Greg
Yes.
Cody Show with Greg Cody.
That's right.
Yeah, I got it right.
Yeah.
And I asked him what his plans are for the graveyard shift during FREEDUM. And he said, I think I'm going to zoom in a doctor to look at my belly button.
Well,
That's what I look forward to.
Good
I don't want to give
idea.
up all the goods.
right. And if I mean, can I get a doctor at 4 a.m.? That's the question.
The executives in town will be impressed and want to sign Greg Cody when at 4 a.m. they watch our 24-hour streaming broadcast and McGillicuddy
Yes.
is examining your belly button.
Yes.
So that's that. So we believe cockily, we believe that, with a little bit of swagger, that we could do 24 straight hours when Stugotz can't do 24 straight minutes without complaining about being tired or making an excuse for some sort of incompetence. We believe we could do 24 straight hours. However, you're going to have to tolerate when one of those hours is Dr. McGillicuddy inspecting the belly button of Greg Cody, and it doesn't pass for actual entertainment. It's just unbelievably strange.
Right. Scientific.
10 seconds.
I love that the rodeo clowns here, after being told several times that we're live today, we're live on YouTube, or as our engineers like to call it, Twitch. We are live, and I've told Greg Cody this, and I've told Stugotz this, but the rodeo clowns were out getting coffee. Stugotz is still not back. Greg Cody has returned, but he is deeply winded because of the asthma inhaler and because of climbing the stairs. So that's what I've got to work with right now.
Who needs me?
And Stugotz is going to walk in at some point and not know that we're on the air or have forgotten that we're on the air. But it allows me a moment to go a little bit serious here. And we'll get back to all the goofiness in a second, because I know you guys get plenty tired of me railing about things on the sermon being annoying as a lecturer with bad tone on societal ills. But the Naomi Osaka story has been fascinating to me over the last couple of days for a lot of different reasons that include some history that I think is important before we arrive at discussing what is presently happening now, which is a long time ago when tennis was patty cake. If you look back at ESPN Classic and Navratilova and Chris Evert are playing, it's a much different tennis. It's just a charming, quaint time of manicured lawns and cute skirts and trophies, and it was a different time in America at the start of the advent of women in sports in a way that made people pay attention. And those women, Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert, started a gender and sexuality conversation before sports was ready to have it and before America was ready to have it. As you realize that all of the things in the arena right now are coming through the prism of politics and race and everything that's happening, just know that once upon a time, the women's game, that game was the country club, right? It was the country club. It was privilege. And it was just a different, Chris Evert was the only one in that equation allowed to be a country sweetheart, okay? Cute as a curtsy, like just sort of 1970s, dates Jimmy Connor's Bad Boy, just a different time. And so from there, Compton invades the country club. Serena Williams and Venus Williams and their loud, crazy genius of a father, Richard Williams, changed a lot of things in that sport, largely a white sport to that point, for the privilege, changed things in ways that, man, Serena's as great a champion as we've ever had. Uncommonly strong might be the greatest of her gifts, because what she endured was critiques of her body and her attitude and her swagger and her outbursts and her demeanor. And, if we're being honest about it, a lot of coded stuff about her culture, because Compton had gotten to the country club. So that's the backstory. And Serena Williams is as good a champion as we've ever seen in our lifetimes anywhere in sports. Naomi Osaka wrestles the sport away from her, from Serena Williams. And she arrives in a place where she is very young. Serena and Venus went through a different set of things coming through this country club. She is very young, but she is at the center right now, physically, the way that she looks as a phenom, culturally, as America's at war with itself and with people who are others. She's got Asian, she's got Black. She is at the center of wrestling that sport away from Serena Williams, who changed it with her power and her grace. And she wrestles it away. And now, by quitting, she wins. By admitting weakness, she is strong. At the end of Mental Health Month, that sport with its rules and rigidities and a lack of humanity you see throughout sports right now with the entertainers as we spit on them and throw bottles at them. In that sport, that woman just quit because she is telling all of us, as someone who's anxious around the media and doesn't want to be speaking, and was asked why she's wearing those black names on her mask, says, you tell me why I'm wearing it. We should remember their names. They're is what feels like after a pandemic. I'm telling you, it's crazy down here, Stugotz. People are shooting each other. It
Right.
feels like 1980s Miami. Seven Miami issues. Hialeah gunman just going into over a record dispute or a social media dispute. 2 killed, 21 wounded, because people are crazy. And it's spilling over into places. We're spitting on Trae Young. We're throwing popcorn at Russell Westbrook. We're throwing a bottle at Kyrie Irving. The entertainers are not human. Kevin Durant is giving the quote that he's giving, just telling you, please look at us as human beings, right? Kevin Durant is telling you this, and we're in the center of sports being the representative for America. This is Kevin Durant. He says fans got to grow up at some point. I know that being in the house for a year and a half with the pandemic got a lot of people on edge, got a lot of people stressed out. But when you come to these games, you have to realize these men are human. We're not animals. We're not in the circus. You come into the game, it's not all about you as a fan. Have some respect for human beings and have some respect for yourself. Your mother wouldn't be proud of you throwing water bottles at basketball players or spitting on players or tossing popcorn. So grow the bleep up and enjoy the game. It's bigger than you. At the center of this is these athletes continue to represent what is happening in America. As things get crazy, the country club has just told someone who is admitting to mental health issues, you must do this or you will be fined, and we will keep fining you. And if you do not do it, we will default you. And she says, in the age of player empowerment, across a decade of athletes realizing the strength of their individual brands, she rises up and says, no, you're not going to default me. I'm leaving to protect my mental health, and becomes bigger than the sport on the spot at the end of Mental Health Month, as we can have a larger think piece conversation culturally about what's going on in America as a tennis club, where the symbolism is you play literally within the lines. At a tennis club, these are our rules. And she's saying, no, I'm weak. And in that, there is strength for her to admit her mental health issues. And the humanity of the person who just wrestled that away from Serena Williams. She is not in any way weak. Wrestled that entire damn sport away from her. And she is giving voice to, well, I've tried to work behind the scenes with this club, and they just want me to do it their ways. And I'm pleading for mental health from this generation, the social media generation, 23 years old, a new generation, younger than even Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is old in this world when he's an egg chasing people on Twitter. She is young, and she is dealing with all the social ills that come with our addictions to this social media that make mental health hard at a time, Stugotz, that it's just hard to be physically. It's hard to be an athlete. There's so much competition. I don't think that we understand how hard it is to get to where these people are. And if she doesn't want to talk because of her mental health issues, are we supposed to tell her work becomes more important? Because she just announced we're
supposed to figure out a way to make it right for her and for anyone else who is going through that. I'm confused by tennis's stance here, because there's a Grand Slam panel. They have a whole thing for all 4 of the Grand Slams. And now they're all kind of, going against Naomi in this case. And the goal should be, how do we keep her comfortable? She is the sport. How do we make her want to be here, as opposed to making her go away? Because she will go away. Dan, she made $70 million last year. She'll go away. I mean, if she's not comfortable.
I mean, somebody has to blink here, and the sport loses because, as Stugotz said, it's not just the French Open. It's all 4 of the majors banding together and saying, play, do your post-match interview, or be fined or be suspended or expelled from the tournament. And something has to change there, because if Naomi draws a line, tennis loses its biggest star, or at least its brightest star. So something's got to happen here. I do think that tennis has to look at what is so upsetting about these post-match interviews. If they feel like an interrogation to a young athlete, if she feels like the questions are challenging her very mental health, then something's wrong on the asking end, not just her refusing to answer.
I feel like she's just trying to decompress. I feel like she's putting on a brave face for fans and for her own career, for the glory of championships. While she's playing, she's suffering through this. She's just trying to decompress and avoid a certain trigger. That doesn't mean that she's not riddled with anxiety while she's in it. She just wants to avoid something that can potentially make it worse.
Again, I want to give you some of the history of the sport, okay? It devours its young. Jennifer Capriati went through this fame machine, the social media machine before it was a social media machine, and it churned her out an addict, okay? So this is a very lonely sport. To get as great as these women are at this, it is just a lot of lonely time in your young years. It's not quite gymnastics, Stugotz, but it can distort a person to give them fame and make that particular life the life of choosing, I've got to go beat Serena Williams.
Right.
It can make a lot of things mentally difficult. I don't know if it's as lonely as swimming, but it's a very lonely sport.
But a lot of people have thrived, have gotten through it. Venus and Serena and Martina and Chris Everett at a very young age. But everyone's different. And that's what's confusing. Everyone's different. Everyone handles this stuff differently. And what you see is this uber confident person out on the court. And you just think, hey, press conference, what's the big deal? She just performed in front of 80,000 people and millions on TV. It's a big deal to her. She's not comfortable.
She's not just teaching us about mental health issues, okay? The other statement she is making, which is not a quiet one, is my self-care matters more than my work, even though you view my work as very important. Even though my work is worth all of these millions of dollars, it's not as important as my self-care. And to me, the entitlement of everything happening in American sports right now, Stugotz, and the way these people are judged is, no, I'm Piers Morgan. I deserve for you to entertain me and then talk to me about it afterward because the media has to matter. What do you mean the media doesn't matter? Piers Morgan is calling you a crybaby. Last time we saw him, he was walking off the set because someone challenged his viewpoints on women. He's calling that woman weak. Piers Morgan. Like, how does that happen? And so you arrive in a place, Stugotz, where she is now, whether she wants to or not, she becomes a symbol that becomes larger than her sport because she becomes one of these issues. Not a human being, but an issue. She's at the center of this. And I worry for her because I don't actually know, Stugotz, how much of this is a strong arm by her of telling tennis, well, I'm just leaving, power move. This is my management. And how much of it is just someone who struggles with this stuff telling us, I tried to work with these people on this. I need help with this. I don't want to be doing these press conferences afterward. And they're like, nope, slippery slope. If we allow you to sit out a press conference for social anxiety, then it becomes like the comfort dog on a plane. And next thing you know, Cody's bringing on some giant, boa constrictor on a plane because it comforts him. Because you can't
comfort snake.
Because part of the deal, Stugotz, is the customer wants access to you, but we get so entitled by the access that we all become Piers Morgan. That we deserve answers from this woman when she wins, and if not, we must punish her with fine and shame and banishment from the tournament.
I agree with everything she is saying. I agree with what she did from a journalistic standpoint. Does it matter? Like, if you don't have her right after the match, does it really matter? It makes your job more difficult, right?
I would say journalists would argue, and we'll have this discussion with Howard Bryant, that, yeah, it matters, and you're worried about precedent. I don't think people would use this as an excuse. I don't think anyone's going to fake anxiety just to get out of talking to the press. But one thing that you also have to apply here that I don't know how many tennis fans I'm talking to in the Zoom, let alone the audience, but tennis journalists are tough. They are a rude breed.
Yes.
It is.
They're the toughest.
Yeah.
They're the toughest across sports media. I don't believe there are tougher askers. There are not tougher askers of questions in tennis.
And there are certain things that journalists wouldn't dare ask American athletes covering professional leagues here in the United States that still doesn't apply over in certain places of the world. Some of these questions are downright rude.
Soccer's worst internationally.
Soccer has a tabloid stuff, but in terms of like directly to your face, because a lot of those soccer journalists, they don't even get face time with these athletes. Like the direct rude questions that tennis players have to face after they've just poured everything into their match, physically and emotionally, a lot of it comes near or over crossing the line. So I understand where, certainly across the board, where Osaka's coming from.
There has been some blowback. Not all the players support what she's doing. Ashley Barty, who's a very prominent player on the women's tour, has said, hey, that's part of our job, quote unquote. There's a contentiousness between journalists and athletes in post-match settings sometimes, particularly if you're talking to a losing athlete. A couple of days ago, after Game 4, my colleague at the Miami Herald, Anthony Chang, asked Bam Adebayo something he didn't like, and there was a give and take there. The question was, what do you need to do to improve? And Bam said, "You've watched me for 4 years. What do I need to do to improve?" And he turned it around, and it got rather testy. And so that's not even a rude question. If you're asking Naomi Osaka something that she thinks is hurtful to her, then you have to police that end of it.
I can hear people listening to this and say, "Be tougher, toughen up,
Oh, sure.
toughen
Of
up,
course they're saying
toughen
that.
up."
Yep.
Maybe I will do what Bam did, which was seize on a media member for saying what his own teammates have been saying in the press. Like, this is probably just a pivot for me to take it out on Bam on a bio, I guess. But Bam, what are you doing there? Like, jumping down. What do you think I need to improve? Well, literally what Goran Dragic just told me, which is get more aggressive. You've been hearing it for 3 years, but you're mad at this is a surprise to you? If it's a surprise to you, Bam, we've got a larger issue.
Are you guys not interested in sort of the macro entitlement as all American sports fans, as Piers Morgan, American sports fans who are condemning players right and left so that Kevin Durant has to teach you how to behave at games? And the part that I find interesting about entitlement is you saw this quote in the New Yorker from an anonymous GM, right, on the player empowerment in today's NBA. The anonymous GM said the players have all the leverage in every situation. I think it's the worst thing that ever happened to professional sports on all levels, end quote. And what he's basically saying there is what I think is the worst thing that ever happened in professional sports is something that happened to me. It's my power got taken away by these people having power. And this is the same thing that's happened to Piers Morgan. If you give the young 23-year-old the right to have her own power, you're taking away some of Piers Morgan's power. And so if we're all looking at it through that prism, damn straight, I'm going to throw a bottle at Kyrie Irving when he's wrecking my team again after already wrecking my team.
Oh, you don't step on Lucky. You don't step on Lucky.
It did kind of instigate that.
I will say. I mean, it's got to be especially triggering. Don't throw bottles. Don't do any of that. But if I'm watching at home, I'm like, oh, bleep this. Kyrie's stepping on Lucky. How dare you? I'm someone that's had to be held back by my friends whenever FSU players stomp on the U. So please, like, just when North Carolina does the U upside down, I want to fight my television. So I get it. I'm just not throwing bottles at the players.
Jessica, which is the one that makes you most enraged across and all of your fandoms, because you root for 40 different teams? Which is the one that makes you unreasonable? Because I have to grant to everyone that Kyrie is just such a bad messenger, because there's so many reasons to not like him outside of the ones that people are choosing to not like him about. Like, there are two camps on Kyrie Irving. All these things that we all agree, yeah, those kind of make you a jerk, Kyrie. And then the other things that people attach to, which he thinks are the reason that we hate him. But no, Kyrie, it's just half of you. It's just that one half. Like that,
I wish that half would just shut the hell up.
Yeah, but you're the guy who team flooded the street after a one playoff victory. Like, if you were Kyrie Irving, you would be telling people we hear all the time. You'd be doing a 24-hour streaming podcast, like, where just all access to all your life. You would love player empowerment so much, Stugotz.
I really would, yet I rail against it all the time.
Jessica, which is the one that makes you enraged in a way that makes you abandon all reason?
Well, I think people think that I should be standing up for Lucky, the Celtics logo, because he's kind of fighting Irish leprechaun adjacent. But that's a sad excuse for a leprechaun caricature. I think that logo is kind of creepy and weird. I don't like it. It's too human-like. It's just not, it's not for me. The Notre Dame leprechaun is much more stately in its old-fashioned tradition. So I have to get that in there.
Creepy. I like it.
Stately. He desecrated. This is what the war in America is right now that makes us throw bottles. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Garnett says Celtics lives matter. Like, he is out there respecting the logo. He is not riding with Kyrie Irving. He is saying that is wrong. You simply do not do that. Somebody throw a bottle at Kevin Garnett. See how that one goes for you. Because of something he did that was disrespectful.
He won't go after you, though. He'll pretend he's going to go after you, but he'll never get to you.
He'll go after the younger, the shorter European guy next to you.
So let me get this right. The guy who wished Tim Duncan a happy Mother's Day, knowing that Tim Duncan's mom died when he was a teenager, and the guy that told Carmelo that his wife tasted like Honey Nut Cheerios is saying stepping on Lucky's where you cross the line.
The second one has not been confirmed. I think that might be urban myth. We might need to get from Amin Al-Hassan the facts on that
Oh,
one.
I'm being reckless with Kevin Garnett's reputation.
Kevin Garnett has sided with Kyrie Irving on, yes, Stugotz, you are absolutely right. When you're Kyrie Irving and you said you were going to stay and then you leave and you join a super team that's unlikable as any super team that's ever been made, run by 3 trolls, and then you go back to Boston and you score 140 because Kevin Durant is shooting. After this is from Josh Everly, Stugotz. Kevin Durant went 552 days between NBA games with the worst injury in the sport. It's his first season back. He missed half this year. He's 32, and he's still leading the playoffs in scoring, 34.8 points a game, with a career high postseason true shooting percentage of 69.6, which is better than Shaq was dunking on jump shots.
Do it against Giannis.
Okay, but with that guy on your team, wait a minute, you've said the Nets are going to roll to the championship.
I have.
Are you going to give Kevin Durant a ring just for that quote from before where he was perfectly reasonable?
So the quote was, well, no, because I was getting angry as I heard it until he did a very, very smart thing. And I think he knew he was up in the air when he's telling everyone to grow up, but I have a burner account, right? But he went to mom. And that's where it really resonated with me. It was such a great move by Kevin Durant, and he left me no space to get mad at him. I mean,
will you give him a ring?
Mom would be embarrassed.
Will you give him a ring for that quote?
No.
Okay,
Ring.
So Kyrie Irving's on that team. They build that team of trolls. It's super interesting, super unlikable. They put up near $150 to end your Boston season of great hope after the Miami Heat ended your Boston season of great hope. And you step on the logo on your way out the door after teasing those people. In teasing those people, saying, look, this is the bare minimum, Boston. Can I please go in there and you just not be loud racist?
Right.
Can you just keep your racism within? And Boston was so close to having the moral high ground, and it needs to be stated for the record that one guy is not all of Boston. All of Boston is not that awful guy throwing a bottle. Okay. One bad person makes it look like that if you have your reputation, just like one bad police officer can do it for the police force, one bad sports writer for sports writers. That guy does not represent Boston.
No, but Kyrie's smart. He knows that city. He knows the fan base. To your point, he set him up on the front end. Don't be loud racist. He instigated by stepping on the logo. He knew there was going to be a dummy who was going to throw a water bottle.
He planned it all.
Everyone is watching.
He planned it all. He tricked Boston into that. And almost Boston survived it until a bottle was thrown. And they almost got out of there. They now know they can't have the moral high ground on. Kyrie came in there, did all that, and we were classy about it because one dude, I'm guessing most of Boston wants to arrest today. One dude made it look like that for everybody.
I mean, we're red pilling the audience right now. You may be giving Kyrie a little too much credit right now. It's a crisis actor in the sands. Is that what you're going with? I just think Kyrie's gonna Kyrie. And he's Russell Brand in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He has a lot of tattoos of a lot of different deities, and he's just a walking contradiction.
But you can't see Kyrie saying, hey, they were pretty well behaved. Let me try one more thing.
No,
I'm going to step on the logo.
I thought you were doing a bit. I didn't think you were actually serious with that. I thought you were just
and I was afraid you were
making him a mastermind of some sort that somehow orchestrated all that because he knew it. Yeah, why not? He planted that guy. He paid an actor to escalate everything and take that arrest charge and take the shame of being the racist in Boston who now represents Boston as part of his master plan.
Soros, man.
I love a villainous team that knows it's a villain and wants to be a villain. And Brooklyn's doing that better than anybody since the Big Three Heat in 2012.
Okay,
I love it.
But don't throw things at the players. They're human beings. They are not. This is not the zoo.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Why do you hate your athletes so much?
But if you're gonna throw something,
I don't know if we should do that, Chris.
It seems pretty harmless of all the things to throw.
I thought popcorn was harmless, but then it wasn't.
Ooh, make it an empty.
What
are
you talking about?
Technically, spit should be harmless. It should, but it's the disrespect behind it.
Make it an empty water bottle.
Throw a towel that says "We here."
A water bottle from that distance could not have been empty. It couldn't have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
It would have
Like-
fluttered in the wind.
Right. Like
Right.
the
Never
physics
gets
of that
to
are
it.
impossible.
Right, never
Right.
gets to
What's in the
Kyrie.
bottle?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so how full was the water bottle? I think we need to do a report because that is a gradation. Those are degrees on
Yes.
the crime. Because I will agree with if it had been a totally empty water bottle that fluttered nearby and just ended up near, I don't know, somebody more benign than that, an assistant coach of some sort. Didn't one of the Knicks very quietly, I believe, didn't one of the Knicks say somebody threw a beer at me?
No, not that I recall.
I believe that this just happened and nobody reports it because there's not the video. I believe that this is not, that we can't add this to all the other stories. Somebody spit on Trae Young. Somebody threw popcorn on Russell Westbrook. Somebody threw a bottle at Kyrie Irving because we don't have the video for another player saying this during the playoffs.
It was Quickly who said he had the beer thrown on him.
I wish you were, because that would have helped me a little while ago.
He's trying to Google how much water was in the water
That's
bottle.
what I'm watching the video
He's a
right now.
Knicks fan. How
Yes.
does he not know that one of his own players?
I'm working for you right now. And I'll give you a second.
It was a real who's on first thing because I kept telling him quickly, quickly, quickly. And he's like, I don't know how much water was in the bottle. I'm like, no, it's quickly.
Hold on a second.
He did. I think he said, did he say it out loud? I feel like I heard him say out loud. It was.
Going as fast as I can. No, the players, quickly.
Does Jessica have any idea what Who's on First is?
Yes, Dan. I know who's on first is. That's a classic.
She doesn't.
Who's
does
on
she?
first?
Right.
What's on second? Someone's on second. I don't know who's on second. Who's on second?
Nailed
Who's
it.
supposed to be on first? But
You
who's
nailed
No,
on
who's
second?
on first?
No,
Yeah.
who's
Who's
on
on
first?
What's on second, right?
What's on second?
Yeah, what's on second?
Who's
Yeah.
on third?
Who's on?
No, who's on
I don't know.
first? Who's on first, Dan?
You sure?
I can't do that. We're not going to be young YouTubers and doing this bit from the 1920s,
I
are
want
we?
to do this. This is what I want to do right now. I want to stop. I want to stop
Yeah.
everything that we're doing right now. And me and Greg and Stugotz will do the old portion of the show while the young shipping container gets together a Who's on First routine that will be performed live on YouTube,
What?
which we now
like
call
it.
No,
Twitch.
no, no, no,
At
no,
the
no, no.
end
You
of
play
the segment.
Fortnite if you want to keep up in these YouTube streets. You don't do it with Abbott and Costello.
Little game of who's on first, Mike.
You know, a
Yes.
little game of Fortnite.
My
I
wheelhouse.
think it's funny and it's retro and it's in my wheelhouse, as Greg
Oh
put it.
yeah.
I feel like we have to prepare a Who's on First routine to try and carry us into the next phase of our futuristic career as we join the kids in the future on Twitch and on YouTube, funded by DraftKings, by doing what I believe to be the original comedy bit. Was there any laughter before Who's on First? I feel like that's the oldest comedy bit.
It is.
Our second oldest, right after a caveman who farted climbing a tree.
Back in the day, Abbott and Costello used to perform Who's on First to thousands of people as like a pregame show at Major League Baseball games. That's how big it was.
So, Mike,
I love that this is Greg Cody's wheelhouse.
It
He's
is.
just pulling out all the facts
it
about
is
who's
totally
on
his
first right
wheelhouse,
now.
but I want to do this absurd as it is. The degree of difficulty is unfair to the shipping container. We're all splattered about, and I don't know where this is going to end up, but I am putting pressure on Mike Ryan and the shipping container to do what used to be live radio for us.
You get me out of this. It's a two-man job, Abbott and Costello. I got my Abbott and Costello, and I have full faith in Chris Cody to absolutely nail this one.
Okay. IU can't handle the truth. Get it ready. All right. Get it ready because I cannot wait for this to mushroom cloud at the end of this segment as we are doing something live. So I want to be able to hit a clock. So tell me how long this routine takes. And I want to hit the ending of this to practice because we're practicing for Friday. We're going to do 24 hours of live content. We are out of practice on doing live content. I know I speak for Stugotz and I when I say we miss live content. We miss sort of falling into ditches and just making up the show as we go along. And next thing you know, Who's on First is being conducted.
For those in the audience, right now, what you're witnessing is a prime example of Dan using the fill. The problem is he said, let's do this at the end of the segment, which I have marked for 17 minutes from now.
That's
So
fine.
can you fill for
Yes,
17
I've
minutes?
got it. It was a busy weekend, Stugotz. It was busy. There was a lot of stuff to talk about.
I believe the water bottle had somewhere between 30 and 40% water left in it. Okay. So that will get to Kyrie Irving. There's another player there. Are we certain that fan wasn't throwing it at the other player? I don't know who number 10 is. but maybe it was
Unfortunate
him.
landing spot if it was meant for somebody else. That's not a great situation.
No.
This would give us an opportunity to relive the time that Dan and Stugotz did the Who's on First routine with former Dolphins players.
We
So
got
this is a
that?
real
Wait
deep
a minute.
cut.
Wait a minute.
No,
We
no,
got the Who's on First sound from ESPN. They let us have that?
Yeah, just give me 30 seconds to listen to it in queue because comedy's changed over the last 15
Okay,
years.
it's a really
And so have
old-
sensibilities.
It is a really old. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you wrestling that away, and I want to get to that sound. We did a Who's on First routine, and I believe it featured Lusaka Polite. That's all I'm going to say to you. It's 15 years ago, so I do not remember entirely. But I do.
We did this?
Mike Ryan is roaring with laughter.
This was old
All right,
when we did it
Mike,
15 years
no,
ago.
Mike, hold on a second. You and Chris are laughing too hard. You don't even need to edit anymore. Just play it.
This is so good.
Just play
But you
it.
have we have to set this up for the audience because I'm not sure those in the audience know about 2008 Miami Dolphins. Okay, Wildcat fever was sweeping a nation.
Oh.
You never knew who was going to be the quarterback. Was it going to be Ronnie Brown? Was it going to be Lusaka Polite? You have no idea. Henny, Pat White was in the mix. They had so many options back then. I think I did it, Dan, and that's also a prime fill.
Who's the quarterback?
White.
Henny?
He's white.
Pennington?
No, Dan, the quarterback is black.
Oh, you're talking about Ronnie.
No, he's brown.
Who's brown?
Ronnie.
No, he's black.
No, he's brown.
Wait a minute. Who's in the backfield with him?
Polite.
Okay. Who's in the backfield with him? Please.
So bad.
Dan's active. Wow.
No wonder.
Oh.
Very nice.
And it makes me
Ballers.
feel so old.
Fine. 50 million DraftKings. Woo! Who's on first? That's we're gonna.
Polite.
Polite.
Okay.
That was some acting there.
Who's the
Wow.
quarterback? Please.
I think I need to hear it again.
Oh, do you? All right, you need to hear it again. All right, it moved very fast. Now you have to understand there are white people here and brown people here and black people here. And some of them are named white and some of them are named brown, but none of them are named black. One of them is named Polite and one of them is named Henny.
Who's the quarterback?
White.
Henny?
He's white.
Pennington?
No, Dan, the quarterback is black.
Oh, you're talking about Ronnie.
No, he's brown.
Who's brown?
Ronnie.
No, he's black.
No, he's brown.
Wait a minute. Who's in the backfield with him?
Polite.
Okay. Who's in the backfield with him? Please.
Just terrible.
Who's brown?
Just terrible.
You're so good.
All right, so
That was that phase where you thought acting was easy.
all
remember?
right, so do it 10 minutes from now, guys. All right, you guys, Whittingham and Cody, Chris Cody are ready. They're going to do a Who's on First routine, but we've actually got some cool stuff from sports to talk about because there couldn't have been a funnier thing that happened this weekend. I dare any of you to top me in AEW wrestling. Chris Jericho, and we like Tony Khan around here, and stunningly, Stugotz, AEW wrestling earlier this year had better ratings than the Nets and the Sixers playing a game during the regular season
Crazy.
because they've gotten some footing in the wrestling world, and they've done it at least in part because did you see this? Did you see what it is that I'm talking about?
No, but they had better ratings than a regular season game. Nets Sixers.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Between those two teams.
Crazy.
And part of the reason is because they're funny. It's wrestling with a wink, and Chris Jericho, who's been great at that for a long time, spills into the office of Urban Meyer, the actual office of Urban Meyer, because they tape those things at the Jacksonville Stadium, and Urban Meyer is there pretending to be shocked. It's as likable as he's ever been. And then his assistant
bar.
coach, Jessica disagrees, and then his assistant coach just starts firing footballs.
Oh, not just any assistant coach, Dan. Charlie Strong, who has never thrown a football in his life, apparently.
He's in Jacksonville.
Right. Makes sense, though.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show, even though Guillermo's not here.
Yeah.
Is that as likable as Urban Meyer has ever been? And did you know that Charlie Strong was in Jacksonville? Jessica, were you shaking your head no on that was not Urban Meyer being likable?
Well, I really truthfully didn't see it, Dan, but Urban Meyer and likable in the same sentence is just a difficult one for me, no matter what the context is.
Okay, but again, I'm telling you that this is wrestling with a smirk. So I understand in all the different ways that Urban Meyer is problematic.
She is so Stugotz. I mean, she did see it. She's forming an opinion. I love you, Smetty.
Stugotz, the Stugotz hour this weekend, and the 24-hour live stream is going to be dangerous. I don't know when it's going to be. It's not on the schedule, but it's going to happen.
Is it going to happen? I've just been told
You
it's
just
going to
got
happen by
Stugotz.
her. And I don't think that's going to happen. I've seen all the paperwork. I've seen more planning than anything that's ever been done around this show. It's frightened me looking through all that paperwork. Like, wait, they expect us to plan
That is
this?
vintage Stugotz right there. She just ropes Stugotz into something she herself won't commit to. It's incredible.
Just wander in at 4:30. I'll get you on.
No, but neither one of them. We've got all the spots are
find some
filled
room
except
for
for the McGillicuddy belly button search.
Greg, could
Dan,
anyone roll
Dan,
in
Dan.
here at 4:00 and you would let them on?
Anybody. It's an open door policy. Wander in.
Who do you think wrote the rundown, Dan?
Does she have an hour on this 24-hour streaming thing? How did she already finagle an hour? I would think a lot of people. She did not.
So the shipping container is we're gonna spotlight all the podcasts on the Batard and Friends umbrella, and some that aren't even formally a part of us, like Greg Cody's podcast. But there's like a whole mystery crate carve out very early in the wee hours of Saturday morning, and the shipping container will drive that. I would be on 20 consecutive hours behind the board by that time, so that should be fun.
Are you? Wait a minute. You're doing 24 hours without a break?
Yeah, I'm going to go for it. I don't know if I can make it through there. I don't want to make a big deal out of it in case I disappoint, because there's like a little 3-hour window there during the graveyard shift that I might be able to get some shut-eye. But I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for 24 hours.
You are brave and heroic.
Wow. Yeah, well, maybe that hour might just put me to sleep. Am I right, Greg? Rib.
Hey.
You're heroic, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
The Kyrie Irving situation, Stugotz, because
Yeah.
I wanted to get more into Urban Meyer. We'll do it with Funniest Thing from the Sports Weekend a little bit later in the show, because it was funny, even though it had Urban Meyer in the middle of it. And AEW wrestling is stronger. It's something that's gathering strength. But what do you guys make of what it is that's happening? When I tell you, when we're talking about the tensions in America, we're talking about gunshots all over Miami, we're talking about a hostility that results in America suddenly behaving like Europe has for a long time in terms of just throwing things at athletes, disrespecting athletes that way. This is not something, even with the malice at the palace, this is not something that America has been known for. Now you've got, after the pandemic and people are crazy, you got popcorn on Russell Westbrook. You got spit on Trae Young. If those aren't deterrents enough to learn that those fans are being banned for life and everything else, you get a bottle thrown at Kyrie Irving. Now you find out with the shame of the public arrest, because Boston's going to come down on this guy because you just made the entire region look like that for something super stupid. These are all small, isolated incidents. The media loves these things. They are content fountains. What is happening? Can we take these three things and have a conversation about what is happening to the relationship between America's fans and its athletes? Like, why are you that hostile toward the entertainers in that particular sport, which is the blackest of the sports, and it's the Black Lives Matter of the sport, and its ratings have been crushed for whatever the reasons are. The ratings are no longer what they were. The ratings monster is now Steph Curry. It's not LeBron. Steph Curry is the guy who gets people to televisions because he's still the family guy. He's still the guy with the unbelievable story that is palatable to everybody, even though he has chosen sides too at a time that America is taking sides. But I ask you guys the question, is it fair to take these three incidents, an isolated span over an unprecedented pandemic time, and wonder about what the hell is going on between America and its sports fan and its relationship with its athlete?
I think it's fair to wonder. I think Kevin Durant said it pretty well, actually, where you have people who have been in their apartments, in their homes, kind of bottled up for the last 18 months, and they're coming out and they're doing what they do, and they're remembering what fans used to do. But the difference is the players aren't standing for it anymore. This has been going on forever. But Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, They're not standing for it anymore, and it's going to change. And if it doesn't change, if you're a fan and you think you're going to go to the arena and do something like this, guess what? You're not. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get your season tickets revoked. And I have to feel like that's more important than you being a tough guy in front of your, idiot friends for 5 minutes.
Yeah, at the root of it is disrespect, and that's one thing players don't like to be is disrespected. Honestly, though, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more because you have a cocktail of alcohol is involved, I'm sure, in some of these instances, and then you have to be a little bit. You're not right upstairs if you throw a bottle at a fan. Okay, maybe you've had too much to drink, but you're not right, and in a crowd of 15,000 you're going to have some crackpots. You just are. You're going to have people who don't know how to control themselves, and they're going to fling a bottle. I don't think it's fair to brand any fandom, including Boston, because one person out of 15,000 does that.
But I would say, given what we've just seen happen in America recently, I do think that it's worth noticing that the spit, the hurled objects, the plea by Kevin Durant for, hey, we're not circus animals. Like, we're human beings here. After all of that had happened, I do believe it's worth noticing, hey, it's not happening in baseball. Like, why is it happening there? Like, there are important games happening.
There's that fence,
Right.
and they're further.
You have to have a chooch to get a water bottle
You
out in
can
a
throw
baseball.
things
It is amazing that the fans are still that close, just from a player's safety standpoint. I'm not even talking about projectiles. I'm talking about they're in the way. The athletes have outgrown the NBA court. They're a lot closer there.
I am asking you about the racial elements of this. I'm asking you about the hostility. All you need is one racist to not like one black guy and throw in all the mix of sports emotions and drinking. And you hate that dude. Like, you hate that dude because you care about your Celtics pride. It's part of your identity. And that dude wrecked your team and now stomps on your logo. And you're entitled as a sports fan who pays his salary, quote unquote, to treat him less humanly than everyone else.
I think there's a lot of variables at play here. And yes, you cannot at all gloss over the racial element. It's predominantly black league, and there's a lot of white customers that are doing this yelling. But the proximity to the court and the fans actually really affect that sport because they're so close. Like, you don't really see who's a baseball player that's shushing the crowd like Trae Young did. I'm not putting any of the blame on the basketball players. I think it's a byproduct of just everybody being on top of
All right,
one
Mike,
another.
what about hockey though? Like,
There's
what,
glass, like there's separation.
glass, yeah.
There isn't separation in this sport.
Plus, those guys are beating each other up. I mean, they are.
There's
spitting on
nets.
each other.
Yeah. I can't throw a projectile unless I'm right at center ice.
okay, so let me ask the question another way then. How many times does that have to happen for me to wonder aloud, hey, what's the problem between America's sports fans and its athletes? Like, why you love these guys so much? You pay so much, you wear their jerseys on your back. Like, how many of these have to happen and how short of a span for it not to be about pandemic or not to be about any of the other things? And let me give it a number. Let me say it happens 40 times. Would you guys then be able to wonder, hey, like, why do you guys hate these dudes so much?
Wait, it's also the responsibility of the media too, because they keep feeding this narrative about Boston fans and the Mecca and Philadelphia fans. Again, not taking blame away from those individuals, but they're just like, it's mob mentality. Wait, I thought we were all on this. We're the horrible place to play. We're the toughest fans in the league. You keep saying we got to make this place so unpleasant to play in. So they're just doing the stuff that they pretty much always did. And the players have been playing basketball without crowds. And yeah, people that have been, as Kevin Durant gave voice to, been locked up in their homes. You're having all of this release of emotion all at once. It's all too much.
Don't you think the athlete has just changed? The athlete has found their voice. I mean, Osaka's not going to talk after the French Open. Okay, I'm out. I'm withdrawn.
It's an interesting thing to discover after that summer, after the last decade of player empowerment. Stugotz, like, the Osaka thing to me is symbolic and interesting, at least in part, because wait until you see in this individual sport what I show you my power is. I'm going to self-care because the industry, the mechanisms, the media that is on my neck, I'm going to self-care. You can keep your money. I'm going to withdraw. I don't care if it hurts your prestigious tournament. I'm leaving. to me, that's an interesting thing to happen politically in the middle of the arena.
Especially that sport, because it's so top heavy. I mean,
Yes.
I would watch Osaka play Serena Williams. I don't care if I ever see another match. You know,
Forgive me and thank you, Stugotz. I need to get to this because it's important, but forgive me for wandering all over the place here because I wanted to get away from this Boston conversation because Bill Burr spent 90 minutes yelling at me yesterday. And so remind me to tell you that story because he's a Boston fan and we were talking about the Kyrie Irving thing. And it was a real career highlight for me to just get a private show of beratement from one of the greats, Bill Burr, protecting Boston. So we will get to that, but I've got to do real comedy first. We're doing the progressive comedy around here. Who's on first as reenacted? Do you guys need any setup here? This is Abbott and Costello. We are arguing that this is one of the first comedy routines. This is a comedy duo for all time, correct? I don't know. Are we even making comedy duos anymore?
Key and Peele, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan and Stu.
So Abbott and Costello were the first in America.
You think? Yeah.
Ever.
1930s, right?
Yeah.
30s
ever.
or 40s.
And they are represented by, you're the fat one, right, Chris?
How'd you guess?
Are you guys ready to start? Is there any buildup that this requires as we punctuate the segment with the height of comedy?
I want you to picture me with a cigar in my mouth, Shay. All right, here we go.
Yeah, do old-timey voices.
Yeah,
That might
yeah,
be
yeah.
Better. Okay.
Well then, who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fella's name.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing.
Who's on first?
I'm asking you, who's on first?
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and tell me.
That's it.
That's it? That's who?
Yes.
Look, it says pause.
Oh my good God.
Look,
Uh,
look.
teleprompter.
All right, and action. Look, you got a first baseman?
Certainly.
Who's playing first?
That's right.
When you pay off the first baseman every month, who gets the money?
Every dollar of it.
All I'm trying to find out is the fella's name on first base.
Who?
That guy gets it.
That's it.
Who gets the money?
He does. Every dollar. Sometimes his wife comes down and collects it.
Whose wife?
Yes.
Pause.
What's wrong with that?
Look, all I want to know is when you sign up for a first baseman, how does he sign his name?
Who?
The guy.
Who?
How does he sign?
That's how he signs it.
Who?
Yes.
Pause. All I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
No. What's on second base?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
On base at a time.
There's one base at
Damn
a
it.
time.
One base at a time.
Well, don't
Pause.
change the players around.
I'm not changing anybody.
Take it easy, buddy.
I'm only asking you, who's the guy on first base?
That's right.
Okay,
All right.
pause. What's the guy's name on first base?
No. What's on second?
I'm not asking you who's on second.
Who's on first?
I don't know.
He's on third. We're not talking about him.
Now, how do I get on third base?
Why'd you mention his name?
If I mention the third baseman's name, who did I say is playing third?
No. Who's playing first?
What's on first?
What's on second?
I don't know.
He's on third.
There I go. Back on third again. I'm done. That's just me saying that.
There's another
Yeah,
pause. There
you're
was still
a
more to
quitter.
go.
There's more to go. Man.
Reading, man.
I know it's tough. I know. I feel you, Chris. I
That
do.
felt okay.
Put him
That-
on the poll. Reading man.
Yes, reading man, yes or no, but that felt like a real executive battle and metal art between Chris Cody and Whittingham on the broadcast chain. And Chris, you've got some work to do, Cody. You've got a little bit of work to do.
Pause.
Jason on our video team informs me that we reached a peak viewing during our Who's on First bit.
You're welcome.
We are still excited every time we see this man, this modern day Tarzan, with his shirt ripped open, chest hair impossibly young, Cuban Lothario, sort of pink, sort of brown, sexy as hell, coming in here. Why'd you get dressed up? Why did I make you uncomfortable? You talk to the animals. You are a jungle hero. We are still excited every time we see you, and you just buttoned up. What, you were getting proper for television? What happened?
I got the impression after your comment that maybe I had too many buttons undone. I don't want to come off as like, Papi Chulo.
Got a nice tan. Did you sleep on the sun? I mean, what happened to you?
I was at the air show.
The air show.
Memorial Day weekend was crazy here, Ron. There are shootings all over the place, and it's a little bit scary in Miami. Have there been crazy things happening at the zoo? Are you seeing that an increase in weird behavior because people have been cooped up in their house for a year?
Well, what we did see some people who got really, really antagonistic when we required them to wear a mask in the park. We don't require that any longer. But we actually had to call the police a couple of times for a couple of patrons who got unruly. One patron actually made physical contact with one of our employees. So there was a lot of hostility, a lot of pent-up anger there, yes.
American Airlines and Southwest have stopped selling alcohol because we won't stop punching the flight attendants.
Oh, man.
What the hell's going on, man? What are you going to the zoo for? Ron McGill's there. What are you going to the zoo for? And did you get involved in that? Did you run out from your PR ambassador office and get in the middle of one of those physical confrontations?
I did not. Fortunately for me, it happened on days that I was not at the zoo. I was on a couple of weekend days. But, we've had some hostility. We've had some people that have written some very hostile things that I have answered. And fortunately, I've been able to turn them around and get them on board as to why we do certain things. And, it's not necessarily for the people, it's also for the animals. A lot of people don't realize that some animals can catch COVID. So we have an obligation to protect them. So when you're having an interactive experience like feeding a giraffe or feeding a rhino, we will require you to wear a mask. If not for yourself, for the animal.
I was not aware, Ron, until the other day. Mina Kaim sent me something that the hippo does not swim. The hippo is so dense that it just falls to the bottom of a river and then starts running and propels itself up with great rage in order to decimate human beings at a greater rate than everything but mosquitoes, right? I did not know. Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo, who's not here. Chris Cody, put it on the poll. Did you know that hippos cannot swim? You knew that, obviously, Ron.
Well, when we say cannot swim in the traditional sense that they cannot stay above water and like doggy paddle because their buoyancy brings them to the bottom. But, to be able to walk on the bottom of the water and kind of propel yourself is a form of swimming, so to speak.
Put it on the poll, Chris Cody. Is walking on the floor of the ocean a form of swimming?
Dan, what I'm saying is that for an animal to be in the water and get from point A to point B in the water without the use of a submarine or a jet ski or something like that would be considered swimming from one side to the other. There are different forms of swimming. The traditional form, yes, hippos are not doing free stroke or breaststroke or backstroke, but they do the walk stroke on the bottom of the water and propel themselves and can actually, using the ground as the propulsion as opposed to webbing in their feet, they are swimming, I think.
You'd be wrong about that. Roy.
He is wrong. They're
Roy,
walking. Wrong.
You are correct, Roy, that there are no hippos in the ocean. That would be terrifying. You
really
are correct. What do you have for Ron McGill?
Not normally, but there have been hippos seen in the ocean. There was a big famous transect walk by Dr. Michael Fay, walked all the way through Central Africa. And when he got to the other side of the ocean, there were hippos in the freaking water there, which is pretty incredible.
Roy,
I'm sorry, Dan. Ron, how are cats able to drop onto their feet from high distances and are able to walk away unhurt?
Well, they obviously have a musculature much different than ours. People, you've heard about, you can take a cat, literally hold it upside down. Don't do this, okay? Please, listeners, do not do this. But I'm telling you that you can take a cat, hold it upside down, literally 5 feet from the floor, drop it. It's going to always land on its feet. That has just an instinctive, quick reflex to turn right over. And they just have, the ability to cushion a fall really well. I mean, their musculature and their skeleton. That's not to say that all cats are not going to get hurt. I've known some cats that have gotten hurt taking big falls. But, that video that came out recently that went viral, that cat coming out of the 9th story of a building and landing on its feet and walking away, is indicative that these animals are obviously much more adapted to this type of occurrence than we as human beings are, because they have to survive in the wild, and those incidents come up in the wild. We don't usually have to deal with falling out of 9-foot buildings.
Ron,
Next story.
I'm looking at this headline, and it reads, Missouri woman dies after mother cow attacks her. Now, I don't think of a cow as anything but a docile animal. And I'm wondering, what is an example of a zoo animal that looks very docile, but be careful when you're around it?
A giraffe. I've seen a giraffe kill a lioness in the wild. A lioness that was going after her calf. That giraffe kicked 90 degrees straight out from her body, hit that lion right in the midsection, broke her back, killed the lion. So listen, the maternal instinct, no matter what the species, is very, very strong. Don't ever think that just because it looks calm and gentle, that it's not going to defend its young.
You shook your head violently at the idea that a cow is docile and peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. It's a calf. If you're protecting your offspring, an instinct comes up that supersedes anything else that you may have been doing in your day-to-day life. Okay? Generally speaking, human beings can be complacent, gentle people. However, you take something and you mess with a mother's child, and you'll see someone who is normally the most civil, level-headed person turn into an absolute, animal.
You mentioned seeing a giraffe kill a lioness. Can you give us some more details on that? Was it horrific to watch? Did the lioness go flying in the air? How many feet? Like, what? Articulate for us what the power is that you're talking about when you're talking about the way that the giraffe killed a lioness, and what your experience was watching it. Why did that happen? Was the lion, I thought lions knew not to be attacking giraffes.
Oh, no, lions go after giraffe quite often. And more often than not are successful in doing so. On this particular instance, this lioness came up on the mother's side. The mother was between the calf and the lion. And as the lion tried to go around, the mother just threw a kick. And launched that lion probably, 10 feet. And as soon as the lion hit the floor, she didn't move. She was obviously paralyzed. She had her back broken, and that was it. And she died. It was, listen, Dan, I always say it's not an easy thing to watch, but it's an incredible thing to watch. And you realize that, the wild is not Disney. People who think that animals are out there and it's like watching Bambi with a little butterfly landing on her nose and everything, the birds are stinging on their ears and stuff. It's a little bit misleading. The wild can be very tough. I've seen animals die long, horrible, miserable deaths in the wild. I've seen, animals like birds. People think birds, you Snow White again with a little bird landing on her pinky. Birds, pound for pound, are the most aggressive vertebrate on the face of the planet. And the most aggressive birds that I've ever seen are hummingbirds. People look at hummingbirds, right? The sign of peace and love, and just, it's so beautiful. They are nasty little animals.
Ron, how many humans would it take to take out a full-size giraffe? And here's a little note I have. One of the humans has a steak knife.
Changes the game.
Well, it does change the game, but I still gave the nod to the giraffe unless you have literally, and you have to understand that you're going to be sacrificing some humans. Some humans are probably going to die from the initial kick influences. But if you had, I would say, 40 strong adult humans.
No, I'm doing it with 25. Are you kidding me?
Really?
Yep.
You think that could happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Set it up.
I'll put money on that.
Soon with DraftKings, we will be able to bet on that. We will involve Chris Cody in that. He will be one of the 25 charging at a giraffe. We will have to ask John Skipper about our liability issues, but you will be able to bet on that.
Probably has to sign a waiver.
Could be one of the animals that Ron brings in on Friday in studio.
That's true. I'm still looking for the right trailer.
Stugotz, how many waivers did you have to sign to stand on the roof here of the Clevelanders so you could get on highly questionable?
6.
Mike, what can we tell people about what Ron Magill is doing with us without ruining the surprise on Friday? Just telling people that as part of 24 hours of streaming, we are going to have Ron Magill in the house, and he's going to bring friends.
Yeah, multiple looks, because that studio is tiny. So we're going to be exploring this space here at the Clevelander Studios, Dan. Animals are going to be coming. You'll find out which animals will be on with us. Around the beginning of our 24-hour marathon, we went out to the zoo with Ron and we banked some content so we can actually tease some of the animals that might be making their way over here. And it's not just animals, by the way. Ron has a legendary card collection.
Oh,
legendary. He has sent me some cards that he is bringing in, and we're going to have those cards appraised. It's part Crocodile Hunter, part Antiques Roadshow.
It is part of the content that you will be getting in the early.
Mike, as I understand it, when you go to the zoo, you're not supposed to tease animals.
Thank you
The
very
hell
much.
did Amin?
Thank
We're
you.
live, Amin. We're live.
I mean, we're doing a show. No
He
one
sprinted
invited
out.
you. I don't think you have a contract yet. You
He
just
left.
came in from God knows where. You. Let's be honest about this. You shit on the show.
Yeah. I
Like
think you
just-
really oversold the effect of you just bursting
Like, hey,
in without
Amin's
an ad.
here, everybody. Let's check out my narcissism. Live show can stop now, right? I'm just going to come in and make a bad joke that interrupts Dan and ignores that he's talking.
That's a strike against if he's still looking to negotiate this thing.
Does he not have a contract yet?
Still no.
Nope.
Is he going to be part of this week without a contract?
Yeah, that's unfortunate for
Yeah,
him. That's not
yeah.
really good negotiating.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to be a part of this attack on a giraffe that we're going to have DraftKings?
He's one of the 25.
no,
yes,
and,
he
and
is.
I
He's
think he
definitely-
just earned
yeah.
himself a place at the front of the line.
Jess, what do you have for Ron McGill? Stugotz's weekend observations are coming up in a second. Jessica, what do you got?
Well, I had one question, but I'm going to pivot and ask, would a steak knife actually be able to do any damage on a giraffe? I have a feeling that thing's just snapping in half.
A steak knife would probably not do the damage you need to do as quickly as you need to do it. I mean, this is horrible. I'm even saying this, but I fall into the rabbit hole of this show.
No.
No.
Ron,
You
Ron,
have to
let me
have-
explain. We're gonna have somebody underneath, just
Right.
like it was like. Have you ever seen Oz? Basically that, just in the
Hold on.
soft underbelly of
Okay.
the giraffe.
The steak knife is going to have the blade of a scalpel, is what I'm saying. Because the only chance you're going to have is to immediately go for the Achilles tendon and incapacitate the giraffe that way.
It's gonna
One steak knife is only going to be able to take out one foot. Listen, if you had 25 guys and you put even 6 guys on each foot and the other guy just with the steak knife, you're still not going to have it. A giraffe will take 6 human beings and launch them like butterflies.
If you're giving me 40 guys, this is gonna get graphic right now, kids. I'm sorry about this. If you're
40 guys,
watching
you
at
got a
home,
better chance.
we're just gonna saw off one leg, and it's gonna be slow and it's gonna be painful. But yeah, a 3-legged giraffe, I'm not liking its chances so much.
Why are we talking about this? This is weird.
Well, you're the one that doubted the human spirit.
But now
Ron.
you're bringing a saw, not a steak knife.
It wasn't a saw. It was being.
No, it's a repurposed
Oh,
steak knife that
okay.
I have
My
now
bad.
turned into a sawing instrument
I need to
chainsaw.
stop. I need to.
after a couple of shanks.
Got it.
A
Sorry.
chainsaw? No, it's not a chainsaw. That will change the equation. A chainsaw. I just want to backtrack for a second, and I want everyone to understand
Thinking a
those.
horror movie.
I have worked up a healthy dislike for this giraffe. I'm telling you right
Well,
now.
the
How
way
dare
that
you?
Chris
doubt me?
Cody killed this giraffe is ridiculous,
Oh my
Ron.
God.
Which is he was standing under the giraffe with an X-Acto knife, and he was rapidly stabbing it in the belly like you would the roof. I'm not
While
even
yelling.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
I'm,
Yeah.
not, I'm not even sure. Would he reach the belly
Has
of a
PETA
giraffe
ever
with his
gotten
X-Acto-
angry over a workshop? Because we're not actually doing this.
We're just
this
talking
is
it out.
look.
Yes.
It's really on Ron for doubting us.
Look, listen, you presented me with a scenario. I don't even like even talking about the scenario. It's just such a horrible thing to even think about. But I'll get on board here and tell you that the giraffe is going to kick all of your asses.
Okay. All right.
Literally.
Book
Take
it.
it easy.
Book it.
Okay.
I am
All right.
going.
I will book it.
I'm going to kick this
on
giraffe.
Friday.
Big tall ass.
On Friday, we will book it. But again, Ron, I want the specifics. I want you to now imagine Chris Cody has managed to find a soft underbelly on this giraffe we now all hate.
Here, giraffe. Here's some lettuce. Ah, you're dead. You're dead.
How does
It's
it
not.
get there,
It's not
giraffe?
lettuce. It's a knife.
A giraffe is not going to let anybody get under its underbelly without kicking him first. I mean, snap Cody in half. Remember, it killed a lioness, okay? And I think that Cody's got a long way to go before he gets the lioness stats.
Wait, but you have 24 other people there. If they're distracting the giraffe, can't Chris find a nice, peaceful place underneath the giraffe?
There's nothing peaceful going on there. And an X-Acto knife will get you maybe through 1 or 2 layers of the muscle. That's about it.
All right. Ron, I need you to take this question more seriously, and I need to create the visuals for you better, okay?
Okay.
Chris Cody has successfully, because of his army of 25 men that include Amin Al-Hassan.
No, Dan. I think we pared this down. We can do it with just 2. It's just me going, hey, come on, giraffe. Here's some
Yeah.
lettuce.
What you're
And then me
thinking
going,
lettuce. I don't think They eat carrots, not lettuce, right? I don't think.
Oh no, they eat lettuce, man. Yeah, they'll eat anything.
No, you're giraffes.
All right, Ron. So they eat lettuce.
They eat lettuce, but they prefer carrots. They like the sweetness, the sugar of carrots.
Okay, so you have Mike Ryan luring this giraffe under, and somehow Chris Cody has successfully wound up in the soft underbelly of the giraffe. He's standing there. The giraffe right now is not panicked and moving around or kicking anybody. Right now, it's just Chris Cody between its four legs.
I have him camouflaged. Do you?
Okay, yes.
Am I on a stepladder?
Yes, no. This is the question I want to start asking. How much thrust and power you're going to be able to get? Because I don't know how high this roof is on this belly. I do have you in camouflage. I have you with eye black as well.
Absolutely.
And you're pulling your
He's Rambo.
You're pulling your X-Acto knife out of a sleeve of some sort, and now he is jumping up with that movement, the aforementioned noisy movement of how many blows would he have to get in to kill the giraffe, who is now eating both Mike Ryan's lettuce and Mike Ryan?
I mean,
It's way too many blows because an X-Acto knife is not deep enough to do any serious damage to an animal the size of a giraffe. Okay, unless he was able to get into an artery, but he's not going to reach an artery with an X-Acto knife. Okay, now if you tell me it's going to be a 12-inch butcher knife, that's different. Okay, but an X-Acto knife and Cody, nothing. I don't care if he's the invisible man and he gets in there and the giraffe doesn't even see him.
If I'm
and he gets all the stabs he wants.
If he's invisible,
I mean,
okay. If he's invisible,
on.
I like his chances a little bit.
Come
This
on.
is getting absurd,
No,
Ron. We're just
no.
goofing around here.
Cody, put
Come
it on
on,
the
man.
put it on the
taking it
poll,
way too
please.
seriously.
Put it on the poll, please. Would an invisible Chris Cody successfully kill a giraffe?
With an X-Acto knife.
No, no. At this point, if you give him invisible, I don't think he needs the X-Acto knife.
Well, wait a minute. You got the point that he got under the giraffes without any problem. Okay, that's like saying if you can stretch that far, I can stretch as far as say he's invisible because it's not going to happen, Dan. I don't care how many carrots or how many crack you're giving to the giraffe. No, nobody's going to get under a giraffe safely without a giraffe either stepping on him, kicking him, or just annihilating him.
I mean, ESPN tried to make Chris Cody invisible.
I think what you're trying to say, Ron, is that steak knives are just pretty generally useless utensil.
Well, a steak knife would be better on Cody's approach because he's stabbing, okay? But you don't have a real chance when you're stabbing unless you have a really long steak knife. The only advantage you have with a knife is having like a scalpel type, like, and you take out the tendons of the giraffe falls, so he can't stand. There's where you're going to have your advantage.
But at that point, you might as well just use your bare hands. Like, you might as well just get in there with your fists, right?
Jessica, don't toe this line, Jessica. This is
How much damage could we do punching a giraffe in the face?
none.
Right.
None. It would laugh
Get
at
out of
you.
here.
It would swing its head and neck at you once and hit you like a freaking Mark McGuire baseball.
Greg Cody with a machete. What's happening in a fight against a giraffe?
Just Greg Cody alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need nobody.
He could get in one really good stab into the heart. Why am I talking like this? This is horrible.
Right. One stab in the heart. One stab in the heart.
Ron,
Right.
One good stab in the heart sounds like it'll.
Yeah.
That's all it'll take.
Don't underestimate my quickness.
Also a Bryan Adams song.
Thank you for being on with us, Ron. I was trying to think of the line there because one good stab in the heart does sound like an 80s song, and he got there first.
One quick stab in the heart.
It's a song about
It's hard to believe you're a giraffe.
giraffe. Ron, thank you for being on with us. We look forward to seeing you Friday. Mike Ryan got very scared again when you started talking about birds and how crazy dangerous birds are. Mike
Yeah, well,
Ryan.
you know what? I'll tell you what. I'm bringing a freaking bird. That's guaranteed. I'm bringing a bird. man.
Whoa. Okay.
Angry.
All right. He is.
And not a
angry.
little sparrow. I mean, a serious bird. I'm bringing a serious bird.
You be careful. I'm bringing 45 humans,
I'm bringing the liability waivers.
and I'll bring the lettuce.
Ron,
Guys, I'll see you on Friday.
all right. Looking forward
right.
to it. It will be
Thanks.
24 straight hours. Man, we killed that giraffe.
Oh, we killed the shit out of that giraffe.
That giraffe didn't do it. That
We
giraffe didn't-
apologize.
that giraffe
40
didn't do anything
people.
to
Anyone
anyone.
ever-
We stabbed it and we punched it. Why did we do that to the giraffe? An invisible
look,
Chris Cody.
Look, I know how bad it sounded, but it was either us or the giraffe.
It was survival. Stugotz, are you ready to do weekend observations? Are you ready? Are you
I am ready to go.
Right.
Dan.
This is very exciting. Greg Cody, you have not been in the show enough today. We can go to your back in my day after this weekend observation.
I don't have one.
Okay, excellent. 4 a.m. shift for you. It is
Thank
the
you.
shift
Is
that
that
you
punishment?
deserve.
Will there be a back in my day during
Will
the
there be a back in my day
graveyard
then?
shift?
You never know.
Wonderful.
Real solid stuff.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Weekend observations brought to you by Advance Auto Parts. Advance your auto only at Advance Auto Parts. Dan, with 135,000 fans, which is probably a tad aggressive considering the pandemic we just came out of, combined with a win by the only guy in the sport whose name we know. Throw in a kiss of the bricks and some 2% milk. And Dan, just like that, the Indianapolis 500 is back. The Brickyard 500. I learned Helio Castroneves was still out here doing it the same time I saw him actually do it. Speaking of back, the red clay at Roland Garros. Dante DiVincenzo out for the playoffs. Tough break for the Italian kid who was born in Newark, Delaware. You know what they did in Milwaukee on Saturday, Dan?
No.
They broke out the brooms. Everyone needs a guy like Memphis forward Kyle Anderson on their team. You know why? He does a lot of the little things. In other words, Dan, he gives you a little bit of everything. J.A. Happ is a Twin. Cameron Maben is a Met. CBS Sunday Morning, thank you so much for taking us away to a magical place for 90 minutes every Sunday. Greg, your favorite show, right?
I love it.
Oh, it's great.
Rich Little was on this week. Rich Little at 82. Whittingham, tears in his eyes. Whittingham, we'll talk about that later. You're the world's oldest person. Rich Little is what he was longing for.
Love Rich Little.
Canadian fans singing "Oh Canada" together. Goosebumps, the Habs, Lightning, Hurricanes. Put the kids to bed. Zach Wilson passed the sniff test. We're toast. Norman Powell starting to pay huge dividends. Dan, what'd I tell you about the Blazers?
Hmm?
You're right. I did. That's what I told you. You got it. I did.
I've memorized them.
Yes.
I've memorized all these things.
Nailed
You
it.
told me to look out with one eye for the Nuggets. You
Yeah.
told me to look out with another eye for the Grizzlies. And you told me,
Mhm.
and you told me,
Mhm. Headlines everywhere. The USA 3-on-3 basketball team did not qualify for the Olympic Games. Let me be very clear. Robbie Hummel, Kareem Maddox, Joey King, and Dominique Jones didn't qualify for the Olympics. Neek, you send any 3 NBA players there, we qualify, we win the gold. Was there Robbie Hummel? The Olympics. Play for gold. Do you feel like the United States did not make it to the 3-on-3, did not qualify? Because I don't. That's not a representation of United States basketball right there. Robbie Hummel?
I mean, you can ask Amin. He's back there, not ruining the show at present. We'll get his basketball opinions in a second. Look at him. Look how excited. Do you have a contract yet? Are you signed?
Theater of the mind.
Who's Dominique Jones? Neek. The K in Knicks stands for not all the way back. If Julio Jones, what happened there? You okay? I'm serious. All right. If Julio Jones and DK Metcalf play for the same team, everything is over.
It's so true. That's not fair.
It's over.
Put it on the poll, please, Cody. Put it on the poll. If DK Metcalf and Julio Jones play on the same team, is everything over?
Is there a more exciting basketball player to watch right now than Ja Morant? Question. What happened? Question. If a team wins a UEFA League championship, but pretty much no one in the United States cares or saw it, Did they actually win? What happened, Mike? You're mad at me?
Mike is so happy this weekend.
You'll see the contribution when I right your wrongs.
I didn't read it yet. Death, taxes, and a built-in excuse for Chris Paul. Brooklyn Nets, I'm warning you. Don't you dare not win the championship. You've been warned. Oddly, unlike Coke, Mountain Dew is better out of a cold can as opposed to a glass of ice. How about that?
Put it on the
Oh.
poll,
Yeah.
Chris Cody. Put both of those things on the poll.
good.
Is Coca-Cola better in a glass of ice than in a can? And is Mountain Dew better in a can than in a glass of ice?
Cold can. It's got to sit in the fridge for a bit. LeBron has played nearly 3.5 full seasons of playoff basketball. Holy shit.
Right?
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, man. Anyway, Chris Paul, congratulations on finally showing some guts. Do it again. Frank Kaminsky is the son. Frank the Tank. Dan, it's good to know there's still a place in the league for a guy like Frank the Tank.
Is it?
Yeah.
Put that on the poll as well, Chris Cody. Is it good to know that there's still a place in the league for a guy named Frank the Tank?
A weekly tradition, unlike any other, the Anthony Davis injury. Just the thought of Julio Jones and DK Metcalf on the same team makes me tremble. Dan.
Guys, hold on. I'm sorry. Forgive me for just a second.
Yeah, whatever.
Jessica has some information, some breaking news that you can't find anywhere else but here on Frank the Tank.
He beat me in a cornhole tournament in high school. We actually talked about this on Mystery Crate. That was all.
Good stuff.
Yeah, really. What a claim to fame that one.
Whatever. Observations all of a
I mean,
sudden. is
Jessica, I
cornhole.
mean, these damn new people, they just come in and they're like, yeah, you want to hear from me now?
Hey, Frank the Tank.
I got something on Frank the Tank. We played cornhole. All right, can I interrupt
me,
your
Dan.
entire segment?
Dan, the Metropolitans.
What about him?
Just the Metropolitans, Dan.
The Grom is pretty good, Stugotz.
They're good.
Nobody can. The Grom is the best pitcher I've ever seen.
Yeah, really good. Headline: Jets Mosley has added a chip after a 2-year hiatus. I love that. What do you think he means by that? Forgot they had him. Anyway, Vegas Golden Knights head coach Peter DeBoer is now 6-0 in Game 7s. Imagine being undefeated at something that is referred to as the best 2 words in sports. Hey, you know the thing they refer to as the best 2 words in sports? You know who's never lost one? This guy. That's got to feel good, huh?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Zach Plesac broke his thumb after aggressively ripping off his shirt. Baseball. Did Jimmy Butler mean just get me there and I'll get us swept? You know what the B in Butler stands for?
Uh-oh.
Bubble player. You know what the B in Bryn Forbes stands for? Buckets. Bryn Forbes. Athletes at Canota Magazine. Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Do you have any more? You've got
That's all I
athletes,
got.
athletes who connote a magazine. You just wanted to make a Forbes joke.
I did, yes. And Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think that's Michael's wide receiver, right?
Okay.
Is it?
Al Newsweek.
Al Newsweek, ladies and gentlemen, is
course,
Greg
of course.
Cody's first contribution in an hour. Working in a small
Thank you.
window. Ladies and gentlemen,
you.
Amin, Jessica, that
you
is
very
how
much.
you do work right there.
Thank you.
That is how you interrupt the Stugotz weekend observations. Only if you're going to do it that well. Otherwise, leave Stugotz alone.
CNBC, your home for the best 2 words in sports.
Al Newsweek. Tell me more about it. I want to know more.
Al, so I'm intrigued. I really am.
Tell me more. Like, what is he doing?
He
Is
was a 50s star for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Back when magazines were flourishing. So it was a big thing. He was on the cover of Newsweek a couple of times, and it was a running joke. You know, it was great. Right around the time of Abbott and Costello, actually.
Your time.
Yeah.
Guess what? The Bucks don't have to rely entirely on Giannis anymore. Uh-oh. Yes, I had Peter DeBoer pointing both thumbs at himself, saying this guy has never lost one. Clayton Kershaw, Sunday, 6 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs. One might say Clayton is rounding into postseason form. Since firing Lloyd Pierce, the Hawks are 32-12 and a game away from the Eastern Conference semifinals. Helio Castroneves compared himself to Phil Mickelson. Helio, A, you drive a car. B, do it when you're 50. Lefty. The Phoenix Suns won game 4 by a groin. Congratulations to the Mavs and the Clippers, whose series has started a record 4 times, Dan. Amazing. Someone win a home game. I don't know what I'm doing. LeBron said forward Anthony Davis is hurt, and if that's the case, he'll just have to put more on his shoulders. Jesus, man, how much can those shoulders handle? Give those shoulders a break. Seriously.
He said that those shoulders were built for this. He said, that's why I have these shoulders for this very moment. 36 years old, no Anthony Davis.
Maybe a 31.
Sixers looked awfully bad when Embiid left the court yesterday. I think
But the George Hill game almost happened. Did you see it, Mike? He had some big, massive threes in that game.
to put it on the poll, please, Chris Cody. Did the George Hill game almost happen? He had some big, massive threes that I'm sure Stugotz is going to be able to chronicle next year at this time in a game they lost, game 4 against the Wizards.
Dan, the I in Kyrie Irving stands for instigator. A month ago, my 17-year-old daughter and my 78-year-old dad told me Boston College was the best women's lacrosse team in the country. I laughed at them. Congratulations to Boston College for winning their first national championship. I was the women's lacrosse analyst on the Final Four 2 years ago for ESPN. Virginia, Maryland, men's lacrosse championship. Instant classic. Cavs, Terps, Charlotte North, Boston College. Best lacrosse player in the world, men included. Period. End of discussion. A man with a burner account telling others to grow up. That's rich. A Memorial Day tradition in the United States unlike any other. The French Open. Kevin Durant going to the old mom would be embarrassed routine. KD, the Frank Martin is strong in you. Dan, we just saw the first American male to play in and win the Champion League final, which means one thing. Soccer, for now, not dead. But death is right around the corner, man. For everyone. I mean, it is.
Okay. Put it on the poll, Chris Cody. Is death around the corner for everyone?
Some of us more than others.
See, I mean, that's how you work in tight windows. I mean, right like that.
A man who tweets back and forth with incarcerated Bob telling others to get a life. Rich. 135,000 fans? Seriously? How we doing? Speaking of hell, Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.
I do want to ask, some basketball questions because there was some good stuff from the weekend. LeBron laughing as he posted up Jay Crowder was something that was interesting to watch at 36 years old. I wanted to get into Durant being on Twitter and saying it's all fun and games until your ass is banned for life, because Kevin Durant became somebody at the center of this that actually seemed to be, for one of the few times, listened to, because Kevin Durant was eminently reasonable, even though Stugotz is killing him on the idea of you have these burner accounts. You're a child. Stop telling us to grow up. But before you got here, we were talking about the stuff happening with the spitting on Trae Young and the bottle and the popcorn. And I was wondering what it is, because Stugotz is totally unfair to Chris Paul. So I want to talk to you about that. But I wanted to get your macro thoughts on just what is happening between NBA fans. Like, can we take 3 incidents and make them mushroom cloud into something that suggests a hostility between customer and player, or is it just 3 incidents?
Well, I think the important thing is 3 incidents that happened back to back to back. At some point, in the words of Jason Sudeikis and Horrible Bosses 2, do you watch the bleeping news? Do you guys know This is a thing that the league is taking very seriously, and yet people are still doing it. Yesterday in Washington, albeit it wasn't as aggressive, we got a guy who ran onto the court to try to touch the backboard and then nonchalantly walked back to his seat. Like, bro, do you not understand what the environment and the tension that's happening right now between unruly fans and the NBA? The other thing is, I want to make this stance. I don't know if it's ever been made before. I'm going to stick up for two things. One is alcohol, and I know a lot of people stick up for alcohol, but two, I'm going to stick up for COVID. People are throwing COVID and alcohol under the bus saying this is why these people are doing it. No, it's not. COVID had nothing to do with this. Stop blaming COVID for this. COVID is innocent. COVID does not deserve to catch these charges, and I will stick up for a virus that's been guilty of some things, but not of this, Dan Batard. Now, Mitch McConnell doesn't want that. Mitch McConnell wants to make COVID the reason.
I don't understand. I don't understand how that happened. You were in the middle of something serious, and then it became Barack Obama. You were on the path towards something.
I was just making my point. I don't understand. You guys always start to read things into what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that we are unfairly blaming COVID and alcohol on these people acting like bozos. They're bozos. And I think the only way we can get ahead of this is by having some sort of punitive thing that happens beyond being banned for life. So, for instance, no. Watch this.
Banned from life.
Banned for life. Banned from life.
Yeah. Wow.
That would be, yes.
That's
that would
extreme.
be. That would be
Go outside.
Yes.
That's why I'm signing an executive decision to introduce a death penalty.
What? Wait a minute. What just happened?
Well, banned from life. That's what.
No, I'm just saying, like, house arrest. What are you doing?
Well, that's not banned from life. You're still living.
No, you're banned from, like, enjoying life.
Banned from living sounds like a Bon Jovi song. Banned from life. What do you want more than banned? What do you want more than banned for life?
So a lot of people have said things like, well, what if the guy bought the ticket on the secondary market? And I'm proposing that all secondary marketplaces have a feature to say, if you are convicted or kicked out of a game for unruly behavior or these types of things, we have the right to charge your credit card another extra $1,000 on top of it. That'll get people's attention, knowing that, oh, wait a second, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to take a hit in the pocket for doing this beyond perhaps never being able to go back to a game again.
So make it even more punitive than it is, because Kevin Durant was saying pandemic. Kevin Durant, one of the reasons I think that Kevin Durant was more heard on this one than he usually is, because he's a troll and he's unlikable and people dismiss a lot of what he said, is because he offered the bozo the courtesy of people are a little crazy through the pandemic. He extended the bozo a compassion, and by extending the bozo a compassion, you're extending all bozos a compassion, and they applaud the other bozo.
That's nice of him. I'm not going to sit here and let people use what was a terrible thing that happened to the world as an excuse to act like bozos. I just think it's ridiculous, and we're giving COVID a bad name here.
I'm wondering, Amin, how do you solve the fans being assholes to players in the arenas and on the court problem without trying to get to the bottom of it, which is, I think, what we touched on earlier, of just fan entitlement and fans wanting entertainers just to be, circus animals and do what they want them to do. And I don't know.
A strong question there, Jessica.
Stugotz! He really did peter out there. What happened? What happened to the dismount? I don't know. What happened? You came in so strong with asshole, and then you just petered out.
I just feel like sometimes my middle name is just leaking confidence. Like I'm just Jessica, Stugotz, Jennifer, and others leaking confidence, Spatana, whatever my name is. Like I get going and I feel good about it, and then I don't know. I just can't end the sentence. I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it again. I don't know.
And Chris Cody is rooting you on. Chris Cody recognized. Chris Cody just looked into a mirror and was like, "Yes, I understand," and then went right back to stabbing a giraffe with an exacto knife.
Pause.
Please don't make that gesture again, Stugotz.
Sorry, I was trying to tell Chris what to do.
It
was terrible, I realized. I wanted that though, but it's the worst gesture I could have made.
Please don't do that anymore. Do you have anything more on this subject? Because I do want to get into how cruel Stugotz is to Chris Paul. Like, Chris Paul just won a gutty game, and Stugotz isn't going to give him anything. He just wants him to be injured so he could keep ripping Chris Paul.
How about that conversation you had with Monty Williams before the game? Keep it to yourself. How's that sound? Just go play basketball. That's what you're paid to do.
I'm with Stugotz.
Thank you.
I'm gonna rip Chris Paul, not for what happened in Game 4, but what happened after Game 3. They got destroyed on the boards. They turned the ball over left and right, and this guy has the nerve to come out and make it seem like Scott Foster had something to do with it.
Just wanted to see if throwing a bottle while someone was doing their job was unprofessional. And it really was. It's actually a lot worse than I thought it would be. I apologize.
I missed the podcast. Don't say it.
I can't believe how well Durant is playing, even with all that help. I mean, I don't know if you wanted to finish that Chris Paul point.
No, yeah, the idea that like Scott Foster is the reason why they lost that game. I mean, just stop it, man. I hate it, and I'm with Stugotz in that maybe this guy isn't a winner, right? If you're looking for the exit shoot to say this is why we lost, is because Scott Foster reffed the game. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. I've never heard LeBron or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or any other Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. I've never heard any of them start talking about the reason they lost the game. Not was because the refs didn't give us enough calls or, hey, it was a tight whistle or whatever, because this specific guy has reffed 11 straight games that I've lost in. I've lost in, not the Phoenix Suns. Me means he hates me and he has control over two other refs and can make calls that are invisible to the naked eye, but we all know are actually prejudiced against me. It is the biggest loser mentality, whiner comment I've ever heard him make, and I won't lie, lost a little respect for him.
Wow.
How about that?
The heightest of indignations. Amin Al-Hassan has lost 2%, 3%, 4% of the respect that he had for him. 1%, a fraction of a percent. You had a certain amount of percent, and then he made this comment, and how much percent was left?
You had 100% before that game?
I had about 93.
Okay.
93. And how much respect did you lose for Chris Paul for blaming Scott Foster for 11? No merit whatsoever. So I've lost 11 straight games with this referee. No merit, dismissed. You're throwing it out of your courtroom.
I've dropped him down to 86.4.
Wow.
So he's out of the A range.
So
You're now in a B,
right.
a solid B.
7%. You're taking away the respect of Chris Paul. I'm so sorry that Chris Paul has lost this much respect in your esteem.
It's hard, but I think I'll get through it.
What is your level of respect, Stugotz?
0.
Okay, very good. 0 amount. So you can't lose any respect for you. You can simply not.
I've lost all the respect I ever had for Chris Paul.
How much
It wasn't much to begin with.
Oh, it wasn't much. How
No.
much was it to begin with?
I think we started around, listen, you have to do a lot for me to get to 100% respect. So everyone with me starts at around 60. Okay.
Stugotz, who's got 100% approval rating in your
Michael
eyes?
Jordan.
That's it. You walked into that one. I mean,
And maybe Brady.
what a rookie move by you. I mean, you
Got to tee him up.
Kevin Durant, the way that he is playing off of that injury at that age, jump shots completely unstoppable. I always has been, but I read the stat earlier in what we were doing that his true shooting percentage, that he's doing things on jump shots that Shaq wasn't doing with dunks.
Yeah, it's Steph Curry-esque. The thing about Durant that I've been impressed by is the defense. Offensively, look, this Celtics team is not a good defensive team. They haven't defended well all year long. And obviously, we knew that the Nets against lesser opponents can go out there pretty effortlessly and score. They're the number one offense in the history of the NBA by the stats, by offensive rating. But the defense, that's a question mark that all of us had all year long, especially when those three guys are playing together. I know it's the Celtics, but through 4 games, they've defended really well and really consistently, and Durant's been part of that. And so that, to me, is the more impressive part of his performance.
Going to look a lot different against the Bucks, though, right? Like, the Bucks are amazing, man.
Absolutely. That's where it ratchets up, because now you've got guys, not a guy, but guys you can't guard. Giannis is tough for them to guard, but Chris Middleton's going to be tough for them to guard. Drew Holiday's going to be tough for them to guard. And then Milwaukee is bringing shooters on shooters on shooters on shooters. Those guys are lighting it up from the outside. That's going to test the Nets defense, their ability to help and recover and switch and stay solid in their defensive schemes. And then on the other end, Milwaukee is better equipped to defend the Nets. They've got length. They've got good defenders, and they've got a defensive rating that was among the top 5 in the league this year.
I did not intend earlier when we were talking Heat Bucks to disparage Drew Holiday in any way, but I am legitimately confused at the difference between that series last year and this year when the Bucks were that good during the regular season. So the Heat falling apart, not winning a playoff game, being embarrassing, going from the Eastern Conference Finals and, Heat fans wishing an injury away, feeling like Goran Dragic might have made that a different series somehow. Heat and Lakers. How does it go from what we saw between Heat Bucks, the specifics of the disparity? Give me all of the reasons that happened.
So, couple of things. Macro level, the Heat aren't as good as they were a year ago. The Bucks are better than they were a year ago, right? Then you start to drill down a little bit. You and I texted last week, and you made an excellent point. Jimmy Butler didn't play well against the Bucks last year. What happened was the Heat defended the Bucks very well, and then everybody else kind of ate, and Jimmy was okay for 3 out of the 4 games. I think he had one really great game in that 5-game series. So there's that element of coming into this, Jimmy Butler saying, just get me there, but this wasn't exactly the matchup for him to get his engines revved against, right? The other end of the spectrum is the Bucks beyond personnel being better. And remember, I said this and you guys all laughed. I said, not you guys, I should say Ryan Cortez laughed. Ryan Cortez, it's your fault. But Bobby Portis and Bryn Forbes and Drew Holiday, these additions, PJ Tucker, these are big additions for them personnel-wise. But you got to give credit to a guy who caught a lot of heat, which is Mike Budenholzer, because he was coaching a certain way for 2 straight years and refused to change and adjust. And they met a demise in the playoffs that was very similar in both years. This year, he's done a better job of moving Giannis off the ball, letting someone else create, and also in tight game situations, think of that overtime game 1. What they've been doing traditionally is give it to Giannis because he's our best player. You give it to your best player, right, at the end of a game. This was the first time I saw him say, no, yes, he's our best player, but he's not equipped for these moments. Much like Shaq and Kobe, Shaq was the better player, but in an end-of-game situation, I'm putting the ball in Kobe's hands because he can make a play from the top of the key from 23 feet out. They gave it to Chris Middleton. He did what he did. They won that game. And I think that shift in approach by Mike Budenholzer is just as huge as the addition of new weapons.
I mean, given the personnel on the Bucks and the Heat, what do you think Spoelstra could have done or should have done differently? Because it seemed like a rare situation where a very good coach, Spoelstra, just had no answers.
Well, Greg, I think it goes back to personnel. I mean, the Bucks were a better team. The Bucks were a better team last year. The Heat were better at game planning against Mike Budenholzer. They took advantage of Mike Budenholzer's
there he is again.
His inability to adjust to shifting economics of the game.
I don't understand why I don't understand why you keep bringing.
No,
it
I'm
down
just
there.
saying. I was watching the series last week with Michelle, Sasha, Leo.
It is Obama.
My bad.
We'll get to Howard Bryant because I want to talk a little more about this Osaka story because I do think it was the most interesting thing to happen in sports this weekend. Apologies to the Chelsea lovers among us who have not gotten in any way to celebrate their
It's
championship.
very true. I'm not going to be that guy that just hijacks the show to celebrate really what is just a team that only I have real passionate feelings, or I could do, the whole thing where I just get handsy with the wheel and I'm just saying best team in Europe against all odds, a dominant performance in the club competition in all of soccer, and maybe even use the opportunity to promote the fact that I have a partnership with the club and host a very popular podcast called Chelsea Mic'd Up
You wouldn't do
alongside.
that.
I would never do that, though.
Mhm.
I would never do that. But Chelsea is number one. They're the best. All the haters can shut it.
Okay, but that feels like you did it though. At the
No,
end.
didn't do it at all, Dan. Didn't do it. Wasn't singing "We Are the Champions." Didn't become overcome with emotion because I wasn't quite prepared for a bar full of people and hugging. It was just a lot. It was a big release. I wept openly for 5 minutes. It was the happiest, most anxious I've ever been throughout all of that. It's just to be champions of Europe for a second time in club history. It's unbelievable job. I mean, we barely cracked top 4 this season, Dan. As you know, I've talked your ear off, but I would never do that on this show.
But luckily, Mike, you got to talk about that on the Greg Cody Show podcast that's out now. So that's I'm glad to give you that opportunity.
You said it was the biggest game of your life of any kind.
It was because obviously I always supported Chelsea, but it was a dream job to actually do this podcast and go over to London and build relationships with the people that lifted the most prestigious cup in all of club soccer.
Mike called it his Super Bowl before the weekend. He did.
To call it the Super Bowl is just to make you understand it. What happened on Saturday was bigger than the Super Bowl. It's the biggest game on the planet and on the professional club side thing. Obviously, the World Cup, I think everybody would tell you, is the biggest sporting event. But right there, number 2, Champions League final.
Would you exchange Chelsea winning that for the Browns winning a Super Bowl?
Why are we doing the sports radio?
I'm asking you.
topic?
I just want to see how dedicated you are to this Chelsea team.
Fair question.
I'm not going to look.
Thank you, Greg.
Fair question.
Thank you.
Look,
Thank you.
Look, I know
Thank
we've
you.
barely talked about it on the show, and I'm not going to take the bait. But honestly, it's an interesting question. And it's just posed to you guys. Would I take that? I don't know. I can't even really consider the Browns being that type of good. We just won the first playoff game in my lifetime, and after we smoked Jessica's Pittsburgh Steelers and made Ben Roethlisberger cry the way that I was crying on Saturday at the bar when Chelsea lifted the big ears, the most prestigious cup in all of club soccer.
What are you laughing about, Cody?
I didn't know the trophy was called the Big Ears.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
called Big
endearing.
Ears. Yeah, the
That's
Champions
cute.
League trophy.
La Orejona, Dan.
Excellent.
What?
I'm sorry, the what?
Chris Whittingham is a fancy lad.
I like the back and forth this weekend between Nurkic and Kendrick Perkins. Kendrick Perkins exists at this point to say things on ESPN, and Kendrick Perkins.
That's the job.
It is the job. They signed him to a big extension. ESPN didn't want anything to do with what's happening here, but Kendrick Perkins says things on television. He is not Stugotz. He's not me. He just gets on there and he says things that enrage people. And he called Nurkic the worst defender in the league, and Nurkic called him, saying of him, if he were in the league today, he would be a mascot. Because the game did sort of evolve past Perk's style of play, being the square in the middle of the post.
But Frank the Tank is still around.
He's still around, but Kendrick Perkins at this point is not someone who could have guarded people on the perimeter. But he had the argument ender in the battle with Nurkic, in which he just posted a video of Kobe Bryant saying Perk is the best post defender in the league. And it was Kobe Bryant saying it in an interview.
Oh,
and so just
was it one of those things Kobe was saying to be nice because he didn't know? Kobe doesn't do that.
No, it was not to be nice. That's right. Kobe did not do that. And so that was a funny back and forth. We will get back to some of the funnier things that happened this weekend in a second. But one of the things that was not funny, Howard Bryant is here to talk to us about. I thought it was the most interesting story of the weekend because of the variables involved, and there were many of them. But I believe Rob Parker, Howard, and thank you for joining us, wrote this for Deadspin before Osaka gave voice to the mental frailties and the mental illness stuff. But this is what he wrote, And it is indicative of what a lot of people were thinking at the time. Naomi Osaka is wrong. Her boycott of the media at the French Open is misguided. Worse, it's downright unprofessional. If the tennis superstar is seriously dealing with a mental health issue, as she announced on social media before the tournament, she should have bowed out gracefully from the event and taken time for herself. Fans would have been disappointed, but understood. But to claim she can do everything else but just can't talk to the media is bogus. Bravo to the 4 Grand Slam tournaments who issued Osaka both a fine and a stern warning for her behavior. The Grand Slam tournaments also said if she continued to not talk to the media, she could be subject to escalating punishment, including disqualification. And he goes on here. Many fans will side with Osaka, who issued a warning, but I'm sorry. So he goes on here, and the attack on the media, he says, it's so wrong and dumb. The media is there for fans. Most media members are just trying to do a job. It's not about us. It's never been. When you blow off the media, you're telling fans they don't matter and don't count. Media members get paid whether they talk to the star players or not. What can change, and the people who run the events understand, is that media outlets will stop covering events if they can't get access to the stars involved.
You read good.
Howard Bryant with us now. You should read Howard Bryant instead of listening to me reading good. Howard, your thoughts there or what before we get to the larger conversation?
Yeah, on what Rob said?
Yes.
Yeah, I could not, I mean, I understand where Rob's coming from, but that take was a little too hot for me. A little too warm, simply because I don't feel like she should have bowed out gracefully on this. I think that maybe she should have determined whether or not she was fit to play. I think she determined that she was fit to play, but I think that the real issue, when I said during this weekend as well, that I felt like she did not handle this well, I think it was simply in terms of tactics. I think that you have to go to the tournament and you have to at least give the tournament the opportunity to do the ridiculous overreach that they ended up doing to you. So at least you would have been on you would have had the tactical advantage by saying, I went to the tournament. I talked to the tournament before this thing even began, and they pretty much told me to shut up and play. If that were the case, then I think that this would have been a very, very different story. But I think that one of the big issues here was how you do this. I think that when you immediately go public, the minute she went public, now everybody's back is up. And now they're thinking, okay, you're trying to tell us what to do. Well, we're going to show you who's boss. And I think that, I mean, Rob and I are cool and everything, but I got to say, bravo to the tournament for having 4 Grand Slams gang up on her at once. Come on, that was so ridiculously excessive. You talk about proportionality. That was a disproportionate response to what was happening.
How about at this time in America, at the end of Mental Health Illness Month, with the history that tennis has that is interesting and complicated, Howard, where these conversations about gender and sexuality, women's tennis was having it before the rest of the country, before sports. Billie Jean King is even saying you have to be professional in this instance, but she's from another time. And to hear a pioneer of that sort say you got to be professional in that instance when a young person is talking about mental illness, I thought that juxtaposition was interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think that one of the reasons why you can't have these conversations on Twitter is because this is not a single issue. This is not a one-stop conversation. You got to pull all of these things apart. Number one, look at it from Naomi Osaka's perspective. This was going to be one of the most challenging summers of her career. She's coming off back-to-back Grand Slams. She is emerging as the face. And you cannot underestimate this. She's essentially replacing, in a lot of ways, Serena Williams. She's the heir apparent in terms of greatness. That's enormous. We already know that when you've watched her over the last few years, she doesn't seem very comfortable in front of a camera. She doesn't, her interviews are very awkward. She is going on to 2 of her worst surfaces. She doesn't play well on clay. She doesn't play well on grass. She hasn't made the second week in either one of those, in either Wimbledon or Roland Garros. On top of that, she's got to answer for Japan. She hasn't decided whether or not she's going to the Olympics. She's representing her home country. So she's got to deal with that part. On top of that, she's got to defend her US Open championship as well. And with all of that simply being the professional side of it, she also has to answer for the year anniversary of George Floyd and Jacob Blake and everything that happened last year. So all of these things are hitting at once. And there's no question that this is real. I mean, that this is not something that you would look at and go, oh, well, she just doesn't she just doesn't get it. I mean, my issue with her had always been tactics, you know, and then I think that if her second statement had been her first statement, I don't think we're having this conversation.
Howard, she is the sports in a sport that is lacking big stars, big names. She is by far its biggest star. And I'm confused by tennis's stance here, where they should be doing everything they can, shouldn't they, to be making her more comfortable, not go away, to stay put, right?
Well, that's the other element of this that's got to get parsed, in my opinion, which is we are also, as Dan had said, this moment in time. You can't take people out of their context. So in the context that we're in, we're talking about player empowerment. We're talking about who gets to decide what the rules are. I got to tell you, I know you guys are going to laugh about this, but when I've been thinking about this story, there's one name that keeps coming to mind, and it's Donald Sterling. Because Donald Sterling is the guy who said the quiet part out loud. Do I run the game or do they run the game? And this is the argument. This still is a labor question as far as I'm concerned. We're talking about workplace issues. We're talking about workplace conditions. We're talking about who gets to set the parameters. And remember Andre Agassi back in the day in the 80s was like, well, you know, I think this Wimbledon tradition of having to wear whites is really outdated. And Wimbledon was like, well, sir, you're welcome not to come. Right? They are going to tell you these tournaments belong to us. And at the end of the day, no matter how big you are, Naomi Osaka, we've been here since the 90s, the 1890s, right? and you know, we'll get along without you. It was a very harsh response.
Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, but women's tennis does not have a players union, correct? And if they did, this seems like an area where there would be some type of mediator between Osaka and the governing bodies that might be able to kind of avoid something like this happening, where she's going to social media first and instead of going to management.
Yeah, well, here's the piece of that too, right? Tennis is a gentle sport. You know, tennis has been trying for the last 30 years to figure out, is it a pastime or is it a sport, right? This is an on-field issue. It's an on-court. It's an off-court issue as well. And so the real piece of this to me has also been how you choose to communicate. And I think that today's generation of young people, they are social media first. And I think that everybody got their backup when you go public first. And I think that the other piece of that is, if you are going to do this, and if you read her first statement didn't talk that much about her. It talked about the conditions. It talked about how we've seen other players have trouble. And so that being the case, this sounded like she was making a statement on behalf of her profession without buy-in from her profession. So if you notice this weekend, I didn't really sense a great deal of solidarity and support. Obviously, lots of concern for her as a person, but not a lot of concern for reform. And so this is why I just think that this entire conversation has to get unraveled in so many different layers. And you just can't be doing that in 128 characters or an Instagram post that doesn't engage the other side.
What would you say are the most interesting parts of all these layers that you're parsing on this story?
Where'd you go?
Okay, we're still here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I was going to say, where'd you go? All right. I think the most interesting part of the story is, one, her second statement essentially told you, I have not handled being a world champion very well. And she says in her second statement that this has been going back to 2018. What she's really saying is, I'm not doing well here. And I think that part is a very big deal, because that is the story, right? The story has changed from whether she handled it well to whether she didn't, to whether the Grand Slam board overreached and whether it didn't, simply because this became a fight. But the real conversation of what's taking place here is, how is she doing? How's she doing? And it doesn't sound like she's doing very well in terms of what it takes. The price of fame, all these things. We all say we want to be you. Are you sure you want to be her? Or do you just want her bank account? And so there's that. I thought that was really, really important. I think the other piece of this that's extremely important as well is the fundamental question of all of this, which is, when we talk about change and you talk about reform and you talk about who has power, is it time, and I don't agree that it is, but is it a professional athlete's responsibility to be responsible to the public through interview sessions, right? I mean, this is the other thing. Do we want to do press or not? And I think that's one thing that Naomi Osaka really did sort of underestimate the backlash. And of course, the third thing that I think is the most important is what the hell were the Grand Slams doing? I mean, they didn't just say, hey, we're going to have a problem with this tournament. They decided, so Roland Garros called Wimbledon, who called the US Open, who called the Australian Open, and said, we're going to crush everybody. This isn't just for Naomi Osaka. This is for every tennis player who wants to cross us. Here's what's coming. That is a disproportionate response, big time, especially in this time frame.
Oh, but I understand it, Howard. That's exactly how the system protects.
That's how power works. Absolutely. That's how power works. And they went out and said, okay, you want to fight? We're going to fight. And let's just pull this back one quick second, okay? Naomi Osaka, one of the reasons why she wasn't getting a great deal of compassion for this is because all of this is taking place at the same time. She, I think the Wall Street Journal had announced, did a story that she had earned $55 million in endorsements. So the argument has been, well, how hurt can you be? How upset can you be about your station when you're on every magazine cover in the country, in the world, right? So there's that question. And I think that when you put those two side by side, what the Grand Slams were also doing is saying, okay, who are you without us? Do you have that 55 million in endorsements without these Grand Slams? I don't know, how many hardcore tennis fans are out there in your audience, but this is the sport. You can play Charleston and you can play Belgrade and you can play Parma all you want, but if you don't perform at the Grand Slams, you're not part of this sport. And so what they were really saying was, how valuable are you without us? They just went nuclear as a first option.
I get that though, Howard, because in the day of player empowerment, after a decade of what she's been growing up, watching in basketball, power of brand and all that stuff, her and the media the media and these Grand Slams have to stomp her out in order to keep all of their power and their interest. They'll file it under the consumer, the customer, the fan, but really it's just the money exerting its will on the 23-year-old. And what I don't understand is when you're talking about this, you're talking about people not siding with her. Why wouldn't they side with a champion who's 23 years old, asking for compassion for mental illness as 4 institutions gang up on her because she says, I'm uncomfortable with all your questions?
People don't understand it, though.
I think the reason is because I think the first statement came off a little flippant. The first statement was not the second statement. The first statement was, yeah, if you do this to me, I'm just going to laugh. It sort of came off like, I'm rich. What are you going to do to me? And then they said, here's what we're going to do to you, right? So to me, when people say, oh, don't you feel bad now? I think if you go back from the first statement, the first and the second statement are night and day. And then in between, the Grand Slam's response changed this thing dramatically so much, Dan, to your point, that if I am if I'm a fellow tennis player, I'm like, wait a minute, guys, right? But we all know that tennis players are very compliant. And to Jessica's point, no, they don't have a union. And this is one of the things that people have been sort of ridiculing Novak Djokovic for. He's like, we need to unionize, folks. And so this is a real interesting time of tactics. And don't forget about this. I think Jessica made the point earlier that in this moment in time, over the past year, this is a battle for who runs this industry. And damn well, we all know that you've challenged the money and you challenge who gets to sit at that room, they will destroy you. Players come and go, but we're still here.
Howard, since you brought up the point about how she referenced in her statement that she's been struggling with this since 2018, I think one of kind of the underrated aspects of this story is how taxing high-level sport is and kind of what the obligation is of high-level sport to make it easier on the high-performing athletes' mental health when mental health and strength is part of the profession. How do you kind of square those two things?
Well, I think you square it by recognizing the paternalism of the sport. Let's not forget how we treat this. Oh, you get paid all these millions to play a kid's game. It's not a kid's game. This is not a kid's game. It's a $100 billion industry. And believe me, if it were a kid's game, to Dan's point, they wouldn't be trying to smash you the way they're trying to smash you if it were just a kid's game. If it were a kid's game, we'd play another kid's game. But this is not a kid's game. This could not be, this is the most adult game in the world.
Howard,
it's an international $1 billion industry.
Howard, I wonder how you see this playing out because right now we have a staring match between the best player in women's tennis and the four majors. Somebody's going to blink here. Somebody's going to give in. How do you see it playing out? I'm curious.
Well, I think that the way it's going to probably play out is it should play out. It's going to play out the way it should have played out, which is you get behind closed doors and you act like grown-ups, right? I think that's the way it has to play. And you're going to have some change because if there is one thing that we can all agree on, if there's one piece of this that we can all agree on, it is that those press conferences were not a good enough reason to have the number 2 player not performing in one of the biggest tournaments in the world. It's just that this was not the issue to go all the way ham on for either one of them. So I think that you got to get behind closed doors. You got to listen to what the players are saying. I think Osaka, in some ways, if she really wanted this to be something that was going to be a change agent, you got to go to the other players and say, anybody with me on this? Because a lot of the other players are feeling the same thing, but they know they don't have Naomi Osaka's protection. It's like when we talk about all the protests and stuff. When LeBron says it, it's one thing. When Craig Hodges says it, it's another. So they all know the dynamics here. But to answer the question, I think how it's going to play out is there's going to be some diplomacy. There better be some diplomacy. I mean, everybody lost here. Let's just not forget that piece. Everybody went down. Naomi Osaka lost. The tournament lost, the fans lost, everybody lost on this.
Howard, I would say that tennis players don't realize the actual power they have. You hear all this talk about super leagues, and I maintain that tennis is really the only one that could pull it off because you talked about Osaka not being in the French Open. I don't care about the French Open if Osaka's not in it. I don't care about a major if it's not Djokovic and Federer or Nadal. I don't care. So there's like 5 tennis players that I care about, and they have all the power.
Yeah, I tend to disagree with that simply because I think that there are parts of the money game that just don't make sense, right? I mean, you watch tennis tournaments, and you're like, there's nobody there. How is the sport run? It's like when you walk past that restaurant that's got 10 tables and it's empty every night. I'm like, how have they been here for 20 years, right? So the tennis economics are strange because the prize money keeps going up, and yet the interest is less and less in a lot of ways. You have to look at it internationally in terms of where the money's coming from. In fact, ironically, with all of this, so much of the money in tennis, the money that is propping up the sport right now is coming from Asia. So to do this to Naomi Osaka is actually really sort of cheeky in a lot of ways and very, very arrogant. I think that there's another point to this too. I think I think it was Jessica's point earlier, is that let's also think about this from a women's standpoint, right? If you are a female athlete in this country and probably in the world, this is the most lucrative sport. This is the one. Look at the WNBA salaries against the $3.3 million prize money you get for winning the US Open. This is the one. Look at Serena and Sharapova and all the money that women make. I mean, look at Simone Biles' numbers against here. And to your point, Jonathan, I think that they know this, and the tennis players are so grateful because this is how the game is run. It's not a team sport, right? So after every tournament, what do you say? I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank the ball kids. I want to thank the fans. I mean, the paternalism in this game is enormous. And if you notice, the big guys you're talking about, very few of them ever go up against the establishment. That's one of the reasons why you've got that gap between Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal. Djokovic is like, okay, I'm going to tweak the establishment. And Rafa and Roger are like, baseball's been very, very good to me, right? They make sure they don't mess with this in a lot of ways.
Howard, I want to talk to you about the macro here because you're excellent on the macro, not just on this subject. I want to talk to you about everything going on in America and the hostility of throwing popcorn and spitting on athletes. But you tweeted, program alert, Speed is on HBO, and it was horrible.
Wait. He said it was
horrible.
He said it's
horrible. Live this down.
Horrible.
Wait a second. Hold up. Horrible. What's horrible about it? That the fact that it's an adrenaline rush from start to finish, the fact that it changed scores and cinematography and has practical effects, the fact that we have an incredible villain, incredible buddy cop banter between Jeff Daniels and Jack, the fact that Keanu Reeves is an action star for all times, the fact that you had to get a bus above 50 miles per hour in LA traffic?
What did I say to you? It was your turn to lose. Lose. I don't lose. I win. Sorry, that's devil's advocate.
Lose.
Still,
I don't lose.
really?
I win. I win.
Take my hand. Take my hand. The only thing I will say about Speed is that I apologize from the very depths of my heart saying anything bad about that movie because of Dennis Hopper. That's it. Everything else, you get, oh, I'm sorry, and Joe Morton. Mad props to Joe Morton. But let it be said that he is the only brother in Terminator 2, and he's responsible for blowing up, for killing the world. I mean, come on. Speed's awful. You could do better than Speed.
Always
You can't do better than
always
Speed.
bringing.
Please tell me you can do better than Speed.
I do better than a movie that not once but twice uses the device of tracks or highway not being completed. It does that twice. It did that with the highway, and then at the very end, it gets you again with the train tracks aren't completed.
Oh, and let's not
What are
forget
the
the Sandra
odds?
Bullock. She's driving a car. She's driving a bus with a bomb on it. You big jerk. I'm like, what the hell is this? Is awful. This was awful in '94. It's awful today.
Oh, jeez.
Why
Give
would
me
you
a
do this
break.
to yourself?
You
My
are a
Lord.
fool, Howard Bryant.
Trash. Trash.
Howard, what you're saying is that Speed does not have any cultural capital, right? Like, we don't still talk about Speed today because it's just not a very good movie.
That's right. However, we do still talk about Dennis Hopper, and I urge everyone to just go do a River's Edge Blue Velvet Apocalypse Now binge, just to make everybody know how poorly he was treated by Speed.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah. No, it doesn't have any cultural capital. We're not talking.
I was going to say, and also,
we're all talking about Speed. We're all talking about it right now. You're talking about it right now. You have
We're
been.
talking about how bad it is.
No,
Mike. We're
you
talking about how bad
haven't
it is.
even seen it. How dare you?
Oh,
Now I'm not gonna watch it.
oh, you big jerk.
You are a fool, Howard Bryant. This opinion has made me lose 4% of my respect for you.
Howard, don't you like to
I'm going
just
to gain 8.5% back though by talking about Dennis Hopper.
All
right?
But don't you like
I
to
mean,
just sit
come
back
on.
and watch things blow up for a couple of hours? I mean, what's wrong with that, Howard? It's
Nothing
cathartic.
wrong with that.
Hey, thank you.
All I'm going to say is one well-dressed man knows where your cute little butt's hiding. You cannot beat that from Blue Velvet.
All right. So you,
What happened?
he's enraged. He's longing for a different time in Dennis Hopper's life.
He's looking for Dennis Hopper's life. I miss him.
Okay, Howard, we're going to have to let you
Have you
go
ever
on.
seen Waterworld? If you want to talk about an all-time Dennis Hopper performance,
Didn't he steal True Romance? He stole True
He
Romance.
did, yeah.
Did he not?
Yeah. The
but
Chesterfield.
the smokers in Waterworld. My God, we can
Steals
do a whole other
everything.
show on that. So
Thank you,
ambitious.
Howard. Good talking.
Thank
to
you.
Thank you.
Practical effects. It gets me going every time.
It's probably the last time we're talking to Howard, right?
Oh yeah, he's still on the Zoom, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm just waiting. I was waiting.
Yeah.
All right, signing off. Thanks, guys.
Mike was just trying to help you know that he was still there.
That was unfortunate.
That he was still listening. The one who is not here, you may have missed him for a couple of days, is Billy. And I wanted so badly to talk to Billy today about what Bad Bunny said. He said, Bad Bunny, bigger than the Grammys, bigger than doing the Super Bowl. He said the biggest moment of his life was performing in wrestling.
Yeah, he's underselling it too, because it was the biggest moment in my life, watching him and Damian Priest take out the Miz and John Morris. And what a moment in time!
Are you not surprised that Bad Bunny chose that over the Grammys and the Super Bowl as best moment of his life?
The best part was Jay-Z was like, bigger than Super Bowl, right? Like as a joke. And Bad Bunny was wide-eyed and he was like, no, bigger than everything. It's the biggest moment of my life. He was so serious. It was not a joke to him. I loved it.
It's massive. It's a showcase of the immortals, Dan. It's the grandest stage of them all. I mean, I don't say that about the Super Bowl. Man, it's so myopic to just put everything in a Super Bowl prism when you really. The standard should probably be the Champions League final, in which Chelsea actually won it for the second time in their club's history. The only team in London with a European Cup. Now the only team in London with 2 European Cups.
Mike, do me a favor and find that Mad Dog sound of him yelling about somebody getting a police escort. I want to get to that in a second because he's enraged by
He's always
I think it was what's your Jets head coach name? Rob Saleh?
Robert Saleh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was enraged by that. We'll get to that in a second. But before we do, over the weekend, while Mike was watching this, he was enraged by me, and I really was disappointed in Mike in general, because I understand that this championship was a big moment for him, but I texted him that Fast and the Furious and Jurassic Park were talking about a crossover event in which both movies exist together, Stugotz. So you've got,
Right.
The Rock and Ludacris against dinosaurs and stuff.
Okay.
And Mike said my timing was terrible, and I just didn't think the timing was ever terrible to send somebody that was a crossover event that was coming, especially because Billy's favorite movie is the Fast and the Furious franchise, and Mike's favorite movie is this Jurassic Park nonsense.
It's not nonsense, okay? It's I think one of the biggest. It just got knocked off the biggest movie of all time by Avengers, and then Avengers was knocked off because did you see that joke that James Cameron pulled? Just I'm going to re-release Avatar again, just in Asia this time, so I can be number one. No one's asking for these Avatar movies, by the way. Is anybody psyched for Avatar? Avatar was already dated by the time it came out, but I digress. You text me in the middle of the Champions League final for Chelsea. Yes, that was a terrible time because I don't know if you know this. I work for the club. I have a podcast. It's the official podcast, Chelsea Mic'd Up. And I felt like I was a part of the team. I felt like a little bit of me lifted that trophy on Saturday. I was in warm embraces with strangers and family. I was an emotional wreck. And to have that release, Dan, to win the biggest trophy in all of club sports, it just meant a lot. And I wasn't fully prepared for anybody texting me, let alone texting me about Jurassic Park and Fast and Furious. Now that I've had time to process, that movie sounds amazing.
Are you getting a ring?
I mean, a ring for no, you get a medal, Dan.
Are you getting a medal? I
You're
mean-
so myopic.
A ring.
No, I got a coffee mug that says champion on it.
Like you ordered from one from World of Suing?
I
or
may
you-
though, because of my work with the club, we got nominated, Chris Whittingham and I, for the most prestigious award in the industry over in the UK, the Sport Industry Award, Best Podcast, Chelsea Mic'd Up. Go ahead and just follow the feed. Even if you don't support the club, yes, support me. Go for it. It's I'm up for renegotiation.
We are doing something on Friday here that Greg Cody and Amin and the rest of Metal Arc Media will be a part of. We hope that you enjoy it with us.
I wonder why fans are acting the way they're acting.
Oh, we're supporters. We don't really, fans isn't really another myopic thing to call us.
On Friday, we will be doing 24 straight hours of streaming. If you've already found us today, we're doing this as a trial run. We didn't announce it to anybody because there's all sorts of nonsense that goes into what it is we're trying to do on Friday. It is laborious, it is expensive, it is tiring, and you should watch just to see us fail because this is hard to do on your own. And I'm assuming that, like people remember on their wedding day, things that go wrong 20 years later, I assume that you're going to be able to laugh at us hardest on the things that go wrong on Friday, assuming the spaceship can get up into the air. But we've got all sorts of plans, and we're going to try to do all sorts of things. And if you're watching on this YouTube channel right now, please tell everyone you know to subscribe so that they can get it, because it's going to be the place. We are going to grow this thing out from here with things like this, and we're trying to do things live. We're trying to do things with video, and we're trying to do it on our own. And part of that begins Friday with DraftKings. Mike, what do the people need to know about that beyond what I told them before we get to this mad dog sound of him being enraged by the Jets head coach getting a police escort?
Well, as you mentioned, it's 24 straight hours of Le Batard and Friends programming, and that's the entire Le Batard and Friends universe. Amin Hassan is in town. We'll have Kate Fagan. We'll have Tom Haberstroh. We'll have Greg Cody have an hour all to himself. Really, it's going to be spectacular for diehard fans and supporters of this show, but also it's going to be so ambitious. It's sort of a relaunch of our show that we hope to get a few new fans along the way. This is the biggest event that we've ever put on. It's also got the most structure, which is good and bad because we got talent that likes to take a buzzsaw to structure. So tune in to see if any of the ambitious stuff that we're planning on works. but I would say doubly tune in to see it all go wrong.
And it's going to be a big party at the Clevelander on Friday. We're in a dangerous space here. I don't know if Amin noticed it on his way in here, but 7 shootings in 6 days. It's upside down in South Florida right now. And we're going to be at the center of it, trying to bring in the post-normal after a pandemic. We are building an airplane in the air, trying to create this thing after jumping off of the biggest platform in sports. And on Friday, we will see if we land successfully or fall on our face. And you can watch it all live, and it'll happen the way that you just saw it happen, where Amin bursts into the room on a flight and just talks at the wrong time. And hopefully that's the worst thing that happens.
But if you're watching right now, we'll give you an exclusive on some of the programming that's happening throughout those 24 hours. We've mentioned Ron Magill is going to be bringing animals throughout this studio, and also has really valuable cards that we're going to appraise. Cinephile with Adnan Virk, formerly of the WWE, for 5 minutes.
Well, we'll be able to get his first interview about being let go. The first Meadowlark employee to get let go from where it is that he was working before Amin even becomes a Meadowlark employee.
What time is the Ron Magill hour? I need to know.
4 p.m.
Okay.
You've been in these meetings.
Yeah,
we
but
also
I need to stay away from that hour.
Cinephobe.
Yeah.
We'll be doing.
The point is to have you there
Yeah,
because
you're
you're
gonna be
afraid
there.
of the animals. That's what we're
Yeah,
doing. We're
you're gonna be there.
televising. We're televising your horror. What do you mean you're going to run away from there?
Wait, Cinephobe? You're talking about the podcast where Zach Harper and I watch movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes to try to ascertain whether they are accurately poorly rated or perhaps didn't get a fair shake? That's Cinephobe?
That's precisely the one that I'm talking about. And Zach Harper and Amin Al-Hassan will be here live in studio, witching hour type of stuff, because they got the overnights 1 to 3 a.m. They're going to be live recapping the movie The Goods, and hopefully we can get some people adjacent to that film. And
surprise guests.
Plenty of surprise guests.
Who have names you recognize. It lets you think that 4 a.m. with Greg Cody and Dr. McGillicuddy staring at his belly button in a moment of literal navel gazing is all we're going to do. We're going to get big and legitimate names in here to prop up the Greg Codys and the Amin Al-Hassans and the Stugotzes and the Mees and the Mike Ryans, people much more famous than us, like my father.
Jim Brockmeyer is going to be around. Sheena Dott's going to be around. We're even going to have musical performances along the way, including one. I'll drop this bomb right now. Juju Gotti musical performance. I'm back.
Yeah.
Really?
We haven't still worked out exactly how to do any of this, but
Right.
in theory, like it's working.
Poorly is what the audience might root for. So tell the people who need to know about that, because it's the only place you're going to be able to get us. And we are asking for patience from then on in, because we're going to continue to expand everything that we're doing around here with the help of DraftKings.
YouTube, Batard and Friends. That's our page over there. Or just please go to Twitter or Instagram and follow at Batard Show. You'll be able to see clips from today's broadcast. We'll be pushing out a lot of stuff on social media. And since it's on YouTube, it's very easy to share on social media if you're a fan of the show, or even for us. So follow along throughout the day. I know some of you have work. Shame on you if you haven't already taken that day off, by the way, because if you're a super fan of this show, it is must-watch television.
People are going to be able to bet on things around here.
Oh, yeah,
like it's going to be
DraftKings. Yep.
interactive with games, things happening around here. It's going to be 24 hours of Miami fun, as he told you. We're going to have musical acts downstairs. We're going to have this be a party that runs for 24 hours in the epicenter of a place that's hugely dangerous right now. And
You keep saying that?
We're going to hunker down in the middle of danger.
yes,
You should stop. You should stop.
Man,
saying
you're
that.
not really like selling this whole move to Miami thing to me right now. I'm getting a little afraid of the decisions I've made.
only 7 shootings in the last 6 days in Miami.
Not even a record.
It feels very much like the 1980s around here. And I'm sorry you're afraid. Perhaps I can lighten your mood with the rage of one Chris Russo. Again, just blistering. I don't know what Rob Saleh was in such a hurry to do, but he needed a police escort in order to get to wherever it is that he was going.
The
And-
next game, because we're here.
okay. Thank you. The next game. And so this enrages Chris Russo that this guy who hasn't won anything gets a police escort.
I mean, what a joke. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it really is. It's a disgrace. You can't even, you can't deny it. And then they got the guy, then you got the former New York cop who's sitting there, who I guess works for the Jets, who makes sure that Saleh and his kids don't get wet, to make sure he's there to facilitate the exchange. I mean, my God. It makes you vomit. It's a disgrace. I mean, I don't mind him going to the ball game, and I don't mind him getting, get the best tickets in the world. And even if you have to get them for free, I live with that too. I can understand that. I can live with that. But at least make the guy have to tough it out a little. Make him earn it. Make him have to go to the ball game properly. Make him have to figure out a way, honey, I'll take a car service. Let me take the train. And if he's got practice and he can't go, then he doesn't go. That's the way it goes. A lot of times I can't go to games either, I got to work. A lot of times. That's the way of the world. You know what a bad look that is? And this is a guy who in the Super Bowl stunk. Stunk. He's Mr. Enthusiasm on the sidelines for Mahomes, and Andy Reid killed him. Destroyed him. Gave up touchdown after touchdown in the fourth quarter. Awful. That prideful dear Montana puked when he watched it. So did Steve Young. So did Bill Walsh upstairs. Seaford. Disgraced Brody. He disgraced the Niner organization. Disgraced them. That team does nothing but win, and his team collapsed. Oh, my God. So now I'm rooting for the Hawks. I'll tell you right now, I am going to be such a Hawks fan tonight. You would not believe it. I'm going to be a Hawk. First off, I'm mad we didn't get Thibodeau. Secondly, the guard never treated me that way. And thirdly, the Hawks are the underdog anyway. Plus, I don't like the spitting on Young. So I will root like hell tonight to the Hawks. I'll have a gummy, and I will root like a gummy and a cocktail and a ravioli, which I didn't eat last night because I played tennis. And I will sit there and I will root every freaking basket. If that guy wants to bet the over, I'm going to pass. I am going to root every basket of this game tonight in Atlanta. You wouldn't believe how hard I'm going to root.
This requires parsing.
Legend.
Okay, he is a legend. Please put it on the poll, Chris Cody. Do you consider toughing it out, getting a car service at Batard Show? And what I want to do here is I want all of us to listen to that again, but each of us is required to write down what they nominate as the single funniest thing in here, because there are 10 different things to choose from. He is losing his breath. There is a single ravioli involved. I don't know why there's
that he didn't eat last night.
The core of this is simply that the Knicks never did this for him, proving once again that media is just interested in what do you do to make my job easier? Can I crush? That does not sound like objectivity. Crush the Jets coach for a police escort because you never got a police escort. Let's play that again.
I mean, what a joke. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, it really is. It's a disgrace. You can't deny it. And then they got the former New York cop who's sitting there, who I guess works for the Jets, who makes sure that Salah and his kids don't get wet, to make sure he's there to facilitate the exchange. I mean, my God. It makes you vomit. It's a disgrace. I mean, I don't mind him going to the ball game, and I don't mind him getting, get the best tickets in the world. And even if you have to get them for free, I live with that too. I can understand that. I can live with that. But at least make the guy have to tough it out a little. Make him earn it. Make him have to go to the ball game properly. Make him have to figure out a way, honey, I'll take a car service. Let me take the train. And if he's got practice and he can't go, then he doesn't go. That's the way it goes. A lot of times I can't go to games either, I got to work. A lot of times. That's the way of the world. You know what a bad look that is? And this is a guy who in the Super Bowl stunk. Stunk. He's Mr. Enthusiasm on the sidelines for Mahomes, and Andy Reid killed him. Destroyed him. Gave up touchdown after touchdown in the fourth quarter. Awful. That prideful dear Montana puked when he watched it. So did Steve Young. So did Bill Walsh upstairs. Seaford. Disgraced Brody. He disgraced the Niner organization. Disgraced them. That team does nothing but win, and his team collapsed. Oh, my God. So now I'm rooting for the Hawks. I'll tell you right now, I am going to be such a Hawks fan tonight. You would not believe it. I'm going to be a Hawk. First off, I'm mad we didn't get Thibodeau. Secondly, the guard never treated me that way. And thirdly, the Hawks are the underdog anyway. Plus, I don't like the spitting on Young. So I will root like hell tonight to the Hawks. I'll have a gummy. And I will root like a gummy and a cocktail and a ravioli, which I didn't eat last night because I played tennis. And I will sit there and I will root every freaking basket. The fat guy wants to bet the over, I'm going to pass. I am going to root every basket of this game tonight in Atlanta. You wouldn't believe how hard I'm going to root.
It's a tough call. It's Mad Dog Sports Radio. Roy, you go first. The funniest thing from that was blank.
Seaford.
Just the word Seaford. I love when he goes
Seaford.
when he goes back into the catalog.
Seaford.
Just Walsh upstairs. You like Seaford more than the dead Bill Walsh.
Son of Bill Walsh upstairs.
George Seiferd's always funny.
Nothing better than Brody.
Upstairs.
Yes.
Upstairs.
Brody.
Seaford. Disgrace Brody.
The losing of the breath on Bill Walsh upstairs is pretty damn good.
Son of Bill Walsh upstairs.
Chris Cody, the funniest part of that was blank.
Montana puked when he watched it.
Greg Cody, what do you got?
I'll have a gummy and a cocktail. And the ravioli I didn't eat last night because I played tennis.
Is that Mickey Mouse? It sounds like you're Mickey Mouse.
Cody stole mine because it's that particular detail giving where he just told you about all of his plans. He really let you into his life and into his past by just telling you all of it. It's not just a gummy and a cocktail. It's the way that it escalates from gummy to, no, let me clarify, cocktail. And also I'm going to have a little ravioli because I didn't eat it last night because I played tennis.
So I will root like hell tonight to the whole. I'll have a gummy, and I will root like a gummy and a cocktail and a ravioli, which I didn't eat last night because I played tennis.
The best. He's the best.
It's
an important detail.
It's not information you wanted. Which one is the important detail? The ravioli?
All of it.
He didn't, or the fact that he didn't get to it because he answered the question before you asked it, really, which is
and a ravioli, which I didn't eat last night because I played tennis.
Why didn't you have it last night? Well, why are you having ravioli tonight? Well, because I didn't have it last night. Well, why didn't you have it last night? Well, because I played tennis.
Seaford.
Whittingham, what do you got?
Brody, who I had to Google, he's John Brody.
Yeah.
He was the 3rd overall pick in the 1957 NFL draft.
Straight Brody.
Perfect. His last game was in 73.
Shrapnel.
Brody. Brody.
Was there any other thought with the Brody? Was there anything?
Seaford. Brody.
Just a great, Dan.
Seaford. Brody. Stairs. Seaford. Brody. Stairs. Seaford. Brody. Stairs.
Good stuff, everybody. That felt fun.